Sergeants, you may begin your recordings. Sergeant Polite, I pass it over to you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good morning and welcome to the remote hearing to the Committee on Aging. Will council members and staff please turn on their videos at this time? Once again, please turn on your videos at this time. To minimize disruptions, please place all cell phones, electronic devices to vibrate. You may send your testimony at testimony@council.nyc.gov. That's testimony@council.nyc.gov. Chair Chin, we are ready to begin.
Good morning. I'm Councilmember Margaret Chin, Chair of the Committee on Aging. I thank you all for joining us today's Zoom oversight hearing on the future of senior centers after COVID-19. It has been a long and scary 6 months for our city's seniors. While the COVID-19 pandemic has changed lives as we know it for everyone, it has hit New York City senior population especially hard. The pandemic has forced our seniors to deal with such things as food insecurity, social isolation, economic instability, and of course, escalating health risks and crises. Since March, our seniors have needed extra support, and thankfully, our city's senior service providers have risen to the occasion. The city's senior service provider have been working hard to continue serving the seniors that used to be within their program's portfolio, while also expanding their services to new seniors. Although DFTA senior centers were required to physically close following the governor and mayor's shelter-at-home orders in mid-March, DFTA's contracted senior service provider did not stop serving. Even without physical programming, senior center providers have transitioned from congregate meal setting to a grab-and-go meal service system to provide seniors with home-delivered meals. Transition from physical to virtual and online programming for seniors even opened their doors as cooling centers during the summer's heat waves. Our senior service provider have stepped in when seniors needed them the most. However, they have not served without challenges. The issues we have learned from the providers and advocates have been the same since March. Lack of communication from DFTA, unclear guidance and quick turnaround time, uncertainties around reimbursement that were promised, and generally being told to do things without being consulted. Even now, our senior service provider face uncertainty. They do not know when senior center will be physically reopened, what they will need to do to prepare for it, what funding they will receive for their new reality, or even what reopening might look like during and in a post-COVID world. Just last month, DFTA released a concept paper on senior center that was meant to solicit recommendation on how the department could support different types of senior centers in the network. The paper outlined some expectation for DFTA's upcoming request for proposal, or RFP, which is set to be released this fall. This RFP is for senior service providers to apply for DFTA senior center contracts from July 2021 to June 2024. The problem, as providers and advocates have brought up, is that no one knows what senior center will look like. what the senior population will look like or what their needs will be post-COVID. Even more concerning, the concept paper outlined many expectations for providers, including having an increase in outreach, in marketing, and employing a data manager. But absent from the concept paper is funding for such requirements. How will provider execute these expectations without additional funding, especially during an uncertain economic time for our city? We need to take a step back. How can we start an honest dialogue about senior centers of the future when we don't even know what senior center of the present look like? Until we get answer to this question, it is downright irresponsible to expect that all providers are in the right place to compete for these contracts. Our senior providers network has been jolted by the pandemic. The lack of guidance and communication from City Hall, the absence of $10 million in senior center model budget funding, $5 million in food and kitchen staff funding, and indirect cost rate funding promised to them this year. Visionary plans for the future are great, but we can't ignore our priority right now, which is stabilizing this network. DFTA must consider pushing the RFP deadline back to give our providers the clarity and stability they need today. At this hearing, the committee hopes to open and foster dialogue between DFTA and senior service provider about how to best move forward with physically reopening senior centers. The committee would like to hear from DFTA about what plans they have for physical reopening, including specific timeline and detail, how DFTA will be approaching the upcoming senior center contract procurement process, and what DFTA envision for the future of senior centers going forward in a post-COVID world. We will additionally be hearing Intro 2030, sponsored by myself at the request of the mayor, which increased the maximum qualifying income level for those who are applying to the senior citizen rent increase exemption and the disability rent increase exemption, or SCREE and DREE programs. This legislation extends these increased qualifying level to June 30th, 2022. I'd like to thank the committee staff for their help in putting together this hearing. Our counsel, Nusat Sodari, policy analyst, Kalima Johnson, finance analyst, Daniel Krug, and finance unit head, Johina Sapora. I'd like to also thank my deputy chief of staff, Miriam Gira, and I'd like to thank the other committee members who have joined us today. I see Council Member Diaz, Council Member Valone, Council Member Ayala. I guess other council will be joining us later. And I'm going to turn it back to the Legislative Council for further instruction. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I am Nusat Chowdhury, Counsel to the Aging Committee of the New York City Council. I will be moderating today's hearing and calling on panelists to testify. Before we begin testimony, I want to remind everyone that you will be on mute until you are called to testify. After you are called on, you will be unmuted by the host. I will be calling on panelists to testify, so please listen for your name to be called. I will also be periodically be announcing who the next panelists will be. Before we hear from members of the administration today, we will be hearing testimony from the following 5 senior service providers: Pia Scarfo of Vision Urbana, followed by Karen Zhu of Homecrest Community Services, followed by Judy Levin of Greenwich House, of India Home, and finally followed by Caitlin Andrews of Live On New York. Panelists, I will call on you when it is your turn to speak. During the hearing, if council members would like to ask a question, please use the Zoom raise function and I will call on you in order. We will be limiting council member questions to 5 minutes. This includes both questions and answers. Please also note that for ease of this virtual hearing, we will not be allowing a second round of questioning. All public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. After I call your name, please wait a brief moment for the Sergeant at Arms to announce that you may begin before starting your testimony. We will begin this hearing with public testimony from our senior service providers. As a reminder, I will be calling on individuals one by one in order to testify in panels. We will first hear from Pia Scarfo of Vision Urbana.
Before Pierre starts, I would also like to recognize that we've been joined by Councilmember Jonine and Councilmember Deutsch. Thank you.
Starting time.
Pia, you may begin.
Thank you. Good morning, all. I would like to thank Chair Margaret Chin for her leadership and the opportunity to testify on the future of Senior Center after COVID-19. I'm Pia Scarfo, Deputy Director for Senior and Wellness Programs at Vision Urbana, a highly regarded community-based non-for-profit organization that has served the Lower East Side of Manhattan for over 25 years, providing family services, youth and workforce development, health and wellness workshops, food security, pantry delivery, financial and digital literacy training, and several older adult programs, including a NORC program, which I lead. Vision Urbana provides access to critical services to our seniors, resident and community service through the NORC, and our center-based services for immigrant seniors. We serve predominantly Latino, Asian, and Black older adult, which has given us an understanding, a unique understanding of the growing challenges and changing needs of this population. Food and financial security and financial insecurity are more acute in this population that also suffers from serious health disparities with higher rate of chronic illness and comorbidities. Today, I would like to spend a few minutes talking about, less than a few minutes, talking about what Vision Urbana, what service Vision Urbana provides, and what are our recommendations for the future. Vision Urbana is not a typical senior center. Since we have two cohorts of population, we have the baby boomer from the 60s to 70s, and we have older adults. So our program is a holistic program, which is based on case management, health promotion, and several other activities. We consider the needs of this population, and when the COVID-19 started, what Vision Urbana did was to make us more conscious of the needs of this population and creative in terms of the service we provide. Before COVID-19, senior service provider were limited to an activity from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Right now, we look more profoundly to what our population need. Vision Urbana create an internal data collection base that make us more conscious of what our population needs. Apart of the virtual classes that we started providing, also we delivered meals. We started a pantry express, what Live On New York defined as the meals on wheels. And we think that there is an urge, is very important to continue providing those meals in very different ways, can be the grab and go models or other models, but also we need more funding in order to provide more, to continue providing those services. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We are willing.
Thank you, Pia. Next, our next panelist will be Karen Zhu of Homecrest Community Services.
Starting time.
Hi, can you hear me? Oh,
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yep, you may begin.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I want to thank the Chair, Margaret Chin, and members of the Aging Committee for this opportunity to testify today. I hope that everyone is staying safe and healthy at this time. My name is Karen Zhou, Executive Director of HomeQuest Community Services, a multi-social service agency with over 2 decades of serving the Asian American community in Brooklyn. We are a service provider of 2 large senior centers in Sheepshead Bay and Bensonhurst. And we've been providing culturally competent programs and services for Asian immigrant seniors. When the outbreak of COVID-19 hit New York City, we were highly concerned about our seniors' well-being. This is a high-risk and vulnerable population, with many seniors having underlying medical conditions that pose a significant health risk to developing the disease. Because of the rapidly evolving situation, we went from being open the first half of March and having to self-sanitize our facilities to the mayor's mandate to close all New York City senior centers by March 16th in an attempt to stem the spread of COVID, which had by then had widespread community transmission. At the onset, our team acted nimbly and quickly to address the critical need of high food insecurities arising from shelter in place for seniors in self-isolation. We pondered the question, how would they eat while staying at home? We found many seniors who were highly concerned of their next meal, especially as the days turned into weeks. While we are not contracted for meal deliveries, we immediately took the initiative to set up an emergency meal delivery program, which a friend of ours helped coin Stir-Fried Meals on Wheels, providing culturally appropriate meals for Asian seniors. We worked with a local Chinese restaurant who prepared and cooked the meals on demand. And we utilized our staff and volunteer to provide the meals directly to the seniors' homes. These deliveries were based out of a need because it was an emergency situation. As a result of this crisis and heightened media attention, we have had an increased demand for meals and a subsequent increase in our meal expenses, which far exceeds our fiscal 2020 meals budget. To date, we have delivered over 34,000 meals to seniors in need and have fulfilled 100% of meal requests. It's become a lifeline for seniors to keep them nourished so that they could stay at home. Also, during the pandemic, we received a high volume of phone calls from seniors needing meals, particularly Chinese immigrant seniors who only spoke Chinese. They did not know how to call 311 for help, but they did know about our organization, and we started answering calls from our center to better assist them. Many of these calls were requests for meal delivery services. We tried not to turn anyone away because we knew there was a growing wait list for DFDA's meal delivery program, a frozen meal.
Expired.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Next, we will hear from Judy Levin of Greenwich House.
Starting time.
Hi, thank you to the committee chair Chin and members of the City Council Committee on Aging for this opportunity to discuss the future of our senior centers after COVID-19. I'm Judy Levin, Director of Senior Center Services at Greenwich House, a settlement house based in Greenwich Village, where we've been providing a range of services to our immediate community and beyond for over 117 years. I myself have been at Greenwich House for 8 of those years and have worked with this population for my entire career. Relevant to this issue, we have 4 senior centers located throughout the village and Tribeca, as well as mental health and arts culture services, particularly focused on supporting older adults. To state the obvious, the COVID-19 crisis has exacerbated many of the ongoing challenges to seniors, while also raising a range of new ones. They've been faced with increasing social isolation, difficulty accessing needed healthcare services, and ongoing issues related to food insecurity, just to name a few of the key challenges. We welcome this chance to rethink how we and others are delivering these most essential and important services to older adults now more than ever. Broadly speaking, we are energized by many of the improvements and suggested innovations mentioned in the concept paper. However, we remain trepidatious given a raft of outstanding questions that each thought and suggestion raises. Additionally, while we always stand at the ready to work with the city on improving supports for this exceptional population, we also know that the timing of the discussion during an ongoing local and international health crisis, raises noteworthy additional concerns. That all said, I'd like to summarize our impressions as follows. We acknowledge the need to focus on the younger, older adults and reduce any stigmas that exist. After all, they're the next generation who will be in need of this safety net. But in doing so, we'd like to be sure that we don't do this at the expense of important health and wellness needs of our most vulnerable older adults. In a different but related area, the idea that centers and spaces might be redesigned to focus on specific needs is promising, but the suggestion raises critical questions about how providers might be asked or permitted to weave several sites together to ensure that communities are still provided with a comprehensive range of services to meet needs. Increasing elements like partnerships, marketing, and data management, all mentioned in the paper, would strengthen our centers. But is that a new requirement we'd need to figure out on our own? Or is this the concept to also give budget and supports to each center to bring in that type of expertise and talent? And as a final observation, many of the challenges we community services providers in the city face are. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. We will now hear from Sharanya Pillai of India Home.
Starting time.
Thank you. I thank Chair Margaret Chin and the Committee on Immigration for helping India Home provide for the South Asian community during such difficult times. The mission of India Home is to improve the quality of life for older adults by providing culturally appropriate social services across Queens. During this pandemic, India Home quickly responded to the needs of the South Asian senior community and has continued to serve an even higher number of clients than ever before. We provide accurate information, resources, and ultimately provide sanity and comfort in language through our 15,000 plus individual checkup calls that we've done to date. We started a culturally competent home-delivered meal and grocery program, which has served 9,240 meals to 111 seniors 3 days a week and have served groceries to over 800 seniors. Our dedication to reducing social isolation and promoting health and wellness continues as we've transitioned to virtual senior programs, including informational lectures, yoga, meditation, and creative aging, through which we have provided over 9,000 service units. We have also continued to provide case management, telephone reassurance, counseling, ESL, and citizenship classes, among other programs. We have worked very hard to provide these services and have certainly faced a great deal amount of challenges during this time. One of the biggest of such challenges was food programs. The way that the transition of meal provision was handled was incredibly poor. The congregate meals delivered through our culturally competent caterers were initially handled by DEFTA through their emergency food services. The financial support of this initiative was discontinued, and of the exact date and logistics for which we were unaware, and we were suddenly dropped and blindsided by the discontinuation on a day we didn't expect, and we expected our clients to be receiving meals. And I remember this day vividly on May 7th, where 100 of our seniors were left hanging and did not receive meals because of this miscommunication. This happened during the month of Ramadan, where many of our seniors were fasting and were completely dependent on meal provision to break their fast. We were told by Get Food NYC that Get Food NYC would be the new solution to meal provision, and that we must have our clients take these meals in lieu of the congregate meals that we provide. But the meals provided by Get Food NYC were not acceptable for the population that we serve. We received numerous complaints regarding the quality of the food, and in many instances, complaints that the food is spoiled. And thus, we've worked directly with caterers to provide culturally competent meals using our own funds. And while this is a temporary solution that we're able to run with the help of private donations, we need the city's help to sustain this program to continue to provide and prioritize culturally competent services. This is just one example of many of the ways that we are under-resourced and limited to our access to funding. We are dependent on our partnership with government agencies to serve our clients. However, the budget cuts and limited access that APA organizations like ourselves face are barriers in being able to meet the needs of our devastated community during this time. We've worked hard and have had to think creatively to provide these services to the South Asian community during this pandemic. but we need more partnership and collaboration with government agencies to be able to sustain and stabilize the
Time
future of our
expired.
community. As such, India Home makes the following recommendations. Please do support grassroots organizations such as India Home with resources and funding to better serve and stabilize the vulnerable aging community with access to crucial resources. And please do start discussions on reopening senior centers and work directly with immigrant senior serving organizations to guide decision-making in a culturally competent manner. And please do continue to prioritize food security and the COVID-19 response for seniors, and continue to work on this partnership and collaboration with local nonprofits such as ourselves. Thank you, and we urge your support to help stabilize our community. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Our final panelist is Caitlin Andrews from Live On New York.
Thank you, Chair.
Starting time.
Thank you, Chair Chin, for the opportunity to testify. My name is Caitlin Andrews. I'm the Director of Public Policy at Live On New York. Live On New York's members include more than 100 community-based nonprofits, some of whom you've already heard from, that provide core services which allow all New Yorkers to thrive in their communities as we age, including senior centers and other supports. First, I have to applaud senior center providers across the city that have stepped up during COVID-19, finding new ways to provide critical services in the face of numerous challenges. While the physical facilities temporarily shuttered, it's a testament to the strength of these programs and the city that all of senior centers' core functions have remained available to older adults throughout the pandemic. Mental health supports took the form of hundreds of thousands of wellness calls. Nutrition was provided in part through Get Food, which required a lot of support from senior center staff. Socialization, education, and recreation went virtual. And a health focus was paramount through it all. While much of the future appears uncertain, what is certain is that senior centers' core services will be more important than ever in the lives of a rapidly growing older adult population. Now, what are our next steps? What does the future look like? Well, Live On New York really believes that it's time to shift meal provision back to senior centers. While Get Food served a laudable purpose during the pandemic to address large-scale hunger across the lifespan, the city must elevate beyond its interim meal system and shift meal provision back to senior centers, because only senior centers can provide a service that is more cost-efficient, effective, and importantly, in the best interest of older New Yorkers. Senior centers know the nutritional needs of their clients, and they've done this work for decades. It's critical that we bring this service back to senior centers, and to do so, the city will need to commit to reimbursing all associated costs, including PPE, cleaning costs, ventilation improvements. The city should also include the $5 million in promised kitchen staff funding that was left out of the 2021 budget, as well as the $10 million promised for senior center staff. They should provide funding for full costs of providing meals. That includes any funding for meals served beyond the senior center's contracted units. And also, the city should provide clear, succinct guidance regarding best safety practices to help mitigate the risk for both senior center staff and clients, while supporting flexibility and models to accommodate variance in staffing patterns. Now, I want to skip forward so I can quickly touch on the concept paper as well. While recognizing the concept papers aim to push the senior service system forward, Live On New York underscores the need for more specific details that are not currently addressed in the concept paper, but should be explicitly articulated prior to the upcoming RFP to offer providers the opportunity to fully and collaboratively engage with the city. Clarity and details within the concept paper are paramount, particularly given the historic uncertainty that providers and New Yorkers continue to grapple with. I want to give a couple of examples really quickly of some of those questions that we need answers. How many contracts will be awarded? What method, if any, will be utilized in determining the geographic distribution of contracts? What are the expectations and details regarding meal provision in future contracts? We will submit a full comprehensive list of our concerns in our formal response to the concept paper. And we really appreciate this hearing and the opportunity to learn more about what the future of senior centers will look like. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Caitlin. Are there any council member questions for this panel? Seeing none, I will turn it back to Chair Chin for any remarks.
I just wanted to thank this panel for their testimony. And I think it was really important for the commissioner to really get a sense of what's been going on with the providers. And I hope that the panelists who testify, even though you didn't have enough time, please submit your full testimony, because we definitely want to see the recommendation and work with you to make sure that all the issues are addressed. So I turn back to our committee counsel to swear in the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I will now call on the following members of the administration to testify. Commissioner Lorraine Cortez Vasquez from the Department for the Aging, Jose Mercado, Edgar Yu, Janine Ventura, and Eric Rivera. I will first read the oath, and after I will call on you, each of you individually, to respond. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions? Commissioner Cortez Vasquez. Commissioner? Jose Mercado?
I do.
Edgar Yu?
I do.
Janine Ventura?
Yes, I do.
Eric Rivera?
I do. Lorraine is having technical issues. She'll be on in a second.
All right, we'll wait one moment for the commissioner.
Yeah, they're ready for you now. You have to do the oath. Give it a sec. Just log out and log back in.
Commissioner, are you unmuted now? One moment while we deal with some technical issues. Commissioner, do we have you now?
Okay, am I unmuted now? Sorry, I just had I told you I'm not adept at this technical stuff.
No worries.
Welcome
Commissioner,
back.
Okay, great. Don't say anything, Chairman Chin, with all. Did you say the oath yet? Do I need to say I do? I swear to tell the whole truth and nothing.
yes. I can repeat the oath though. Commissioner, do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions?
I do, absolutely.
Perfect. You may begin your testimony when ready.
Good morning, Chairwoman Chin and the members of the Aging Committee. You know who I am. I am honored to present to you during these unprecedented times. And I also hope, first and foremost, that you and your families are doing well. And it is also good to see some of you have not been able to see. So I thank you for this opportunity to discuss the future of senior centers after COVID-19. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Department for the Aging has unceasingly achieved the agency's mission to assure the quality of life and well-being of older New Yorkers. Our priorities are even more critical during this public health crisis. Combating food insecurity among older adults, maintaining social engagement for thousands of center members, and ensuring uninterrupted access to services for older homebound individuals. When congregate services closed, DFDA worked quickly to transition our operations in these unprecedented times to ensure that senior center members continue to have access to daily meals. Our congregate meal system initially shifted from a congregate at-home dinner-style arrangements to a grab-and-go model, which then transitioned to a direct delivery service system, DFDA Direct, and then that has since merged, as originally planned, into the city's broader food and security initiative, Get Food NYC, under the Food Czar. The providers were trained to become authorized enrollers with Get Food NYC to connect older adults to meals through the programs. The shift from grab and go congregate meals to direct delivery was challenging. And yes, it was a key aspect of how DFDA services adapted in accordance with the public health guidance to ensure that older New Yorkers, especially those with underlying health conditions and limited economic resources, were able to receive meals while remaining safely at home. With the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, numerous senior centers commenced a virtual programming. Or increase their virtual offerings in order to reach senior center members, while public health guidance was to stay at home. Virtual classes, I think I skipped the page. I'm sorry. I'm going to go back because I skipped the page. No, it didn't. With the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, numerous senior centers commenced virtual programming or increased their virtual offerings in order to reach the senior center members following public health guidance to stay at home. Virtual classes encompass a wide variety of activities, including Zumba, exercise classes, theater, arts programming, informational sessions on benefits and other topics, chat groups, bereavement groups, and much more. Geriatric mental health programs based in senior centers also continued via telephonic outreach. The number of senior centers reporting virtual programs expanded from 49 or 20% of the providers prior to the pandemic to more than 171, more than half by that summer. The programming provides several benefits. First and foremost, is reducing social isolation for all participants, which is a grave concern and continues to be a concern. Second, information of value to the members, staying in contact with senior center friends. And the fourth is maintaining and improving mental and physical health. While DFTA partners with our sister agencies to implement innovative approaches to provide uninterrupted services for older adults, we also work cooperatively with the network of dedicated service providers. For example, to help combat social isolation and loneliness during the pandemic, senior center staff contact members regularly through social engagement calls. The ongoing engagement calls enable older adults to have a consistent and regular connection with familiar staff in order to decrease social isolation, assess needs, and link center members with vital resources. They have been working tirelessly since the stay and pause orders were given. Since the closing of senior centers in March, DFTA and our provider networks have made approximately 1.4 million social engagement calls, connecting with about 171,700 unduplicated older adults. That is considerably higher than the average daily attendance of center participants. Earlier this year, the agency launched a social isolation campaign, which focused on the challenges and disconnect that many older New Yorkers face during the New York State on Pause and Executive Order 100 plans, which were implemented due to the public health emergency and also the vulnerability of older adults. The campaign entailed both audio and visual public service announcements with two calls to actions. First, asking New Yorkers to reach out to an older neighbor, a friend, or a relative. And the second, highlighting DFTA's Friendly Visiting Program, which pairs older adults with volunteers to help curb social isolation among the older adults. That program went virtual. Broadway star Lin-Manuel Miranda contributed his time to record the audio advertisement in English. The visual ads were translated into Spanish, traditional Chinese, and Russian to make sure we reach the diversity of New York's older adults. The pandemic, wellness work, and social isolations campaign led to significantly increased public interest and involvement in supporting older adults. DFTA providers recruited more than 700 volunteers. The agencies also partnered with the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to work with more than 120 public health associates. DFTA's social isolation campaign also resulted in nearly 400 additional individuals expressing interest in volunteering. DFTA immediately initiated these responses to the pandemic as we work to continue to address food insecurity among older adults served through the DFTA network. Parallel and equally important, work was dedicated to, as I said, to combat social isolation. Given the increased likelihood that senior adults have a more serious course of COVID-19, DFTA continues to monitor ongoing developments and communicates with the provider network. Prior to and throughout the public health crisis, DFTA worked closely and collectively with our service providers. Early in my tenure, I started 4 work groups to work on areas that were of interest that I was informed that were of interest by the providers. Those were look at assessment and evaluations, customer services, better communication, and also anti-ageism. During the pandemic, I hold monthly meetings with providers by borough. DFTA subsequently has established 2 provider work groups last month. One group focuses on the reopening of senior centers as part of our early planning, which must be done in collaboration with the providers. And the other is reimagining the future of these programs to ensure senior services reflect the changing needs and the changing and growing needs of the diverse older population that we have experienced since the last time we've looked at older adult programs, and that we continue to know will continue in the future. Together, these work groups address both short-term planning and long-term visioning in terms of how senior centers can best serve the widely diversity among older adults while complying with public health guidance in response to the pandemic. To further support innovation and advancements in remote programming, together with the Mayor's Office of Chief Technology, DIFTA launched a virtual programming learning community made up of providers and city staff earlier this summer. The best practices of in relation to the best technological programming are shared through this community. They bring their best practices, and then we try to figure out ways that we can expand on those. Discussions focus on program innovations as well as hardware and connectivity needs, which you see I needed because I disconnected just a little while ago. The virtual programming learning community covered topics such as technological access, education, outreach and participation, and program evaluation and reporting. The one goal is to explore how we can expand and replicate the technical support and tablet program initiated for NYCHA older adults. Our goal is to expand this program to non-NYCHA older residents. Additionally, in the summer of 2019, DIFTA conducted a series of workshop meetings with current providers to identify best practices in aging services portfolio. Most of the input provided and ideas shared were relevant to the upcoming senior center procurement. Some suggested concepts that may support engaging in social and congregate activities in a healthy and safe manner post-COVID include fostering a welcoming atmosphere by using practices from the hospitality industry, which is a notion that centers around providing choice to center members. Cultivating a culture that embraces volunteerism, which helps to combat ageism and has been proven critical to the operation of some senior centers. Most centers are dependent on the vast pool of volunteers that they have been so adept at recruiting. And promoting intergenerational program, which has documented the value for both older adults, youth, and the community as a whole. As part of our early planning, and to ensure that we do not find ourselves flat-footed should the stay-at-home rules be relaxed, DIFTA is in communication with the Department of Health and Mental Health to develop guidance for senior centers as we contemplate reopening and what that might look like. The guidance being developed includes long-form guidance that is modeled after New York State's guidance, a checklist for reopening, metrics for reclosing should circumstances result in that response. In collaboration with the Department of Health, DIFTA is discussing what might be possible in terms of indoor and outdoor center activities and the prospect of reintegrating food provision, given the knowledge and relationships providers have with older adults that they serve. Our goal is to do that as soon as possible. Providers are also interested in exploring how older New Yorkers who were not affiliated with DIFTA, who were identified as food insecure and enrolled in Get Food, and how we can bring them to start receiving additional services. We are working closely with our sister agencies and oversights to make sure that our reopening guidance is in alignment and is protective of both our providers as well as the city's older adult population. In recent years, DIFTA has worked with providers, partners to diversify the center portfolio and enhance services and activities offered, with the objective of meeting the needs and preferences of an evolving older New York demographic. Particularly in the light of the pandemic, senior centers will be much different from what we've known traditional center models to have been, those that have existed for decades. Diversifying the mix of centers will create more options and increase choice for older adults, which should in turn expand the overall capacity of the network to attract even more New Yorkers across an age range of older adults. And I'm going to ad lib. I agree with Judy that as we are being innovative, we could never lose sight of the pressing needs of the older adults. Earlier provided work groups discussions have focused on reimagining various aspects of senior centers. Suggestions include specializing models of centers specialized in the wellness, education, reevaluating the types of facilities that allow for social distancing, even given the shifting demographics throughout the city. Providers have proposed exploring ways to address older adult deserts that have emerged. We are examining the role of transportation as part of senior center programming and bridging geographic gaps in older adult services. In advance of the forthcoming procurement, DFTA issued a concept paper for older adult centers, traditionally known as senior centers, on August 21st, 2020. The last procurement of such a magnitude occurred in 2011. That was 10 years ago. The model has not changed. The one prior to that was done in 2003. Currently, DFTA funds 249 centers located in every community district, as well as 38 other sites affiliated with those centers. Prior to the pandemic, approximately 30,000 older adults attended a center on a typical weekday. About 20% of the center participants attended solely for socialization, classes, and other activities without participating in a congregate meal. While meals are important for many attendees, it is evident that other activities and services are also a draw for members. The overarching goal for centers is to provide a range of high quality services, program, and resources that attract and meet the needs of and enrich the lives of New York City's diverse older adults. COVID-19 has underscored and only tapped into the potential for older adult centers to use virtual programming to provide services remotely. The number of centers creating virtual programming opportunities has more than tripled during this period. Through the upcoming procurement, DFTA plans to seek creative input from respondents, as well as promote ways to further expand virtual programming as a permanent feature of senior services. In order to increase the number of people who can benefit from these programs, and reach people who do not easily get to centers, and to broaden the types of programming made available to New Yorkers. We have seen that virtual programming has allowed a state-of-the-art programming to be available to all programs, regardless of their resources or staffing capacity. DFTA is working with our partners in city government to determine next steps in the provision of food to center members in upcoming months. Given the unpredictability of this evolving COVID-19 crisis, food provision methods could still be impacted at the time of implementation of any new senior center contract. DFTA will keep working with the stakeholders throughout this process and to continue working on the planning and implementation as we proceed. Many centers have proven to be vital resources to members and the local community during the pandemic of the COVID-19 pandemic. DFTA wants to ensure that future centers are prepared for emergencies such as major weather events, acts of terrorism, or outbreaks of communicable diseases. The existing center network has been critical in addressing the social isolation through wellness and combating food insecurity by providing meals. They have also played an important role in response to emergencies and recovery efforts. We saw that during the heat waves this summer and last summer when they responded as very effective cooling centers. DFTA seeks to promote older adult centers that have racially, ethnically, and culturally diverse membership reflective of New York City's cosmopolitan population. That includes attracting older people of various age, welcoming special populations, LGBT, persons with disability, and long-term mental health issues, people with re-entry, older adults re-entering society, and ensuring cultural and linguistic competence so that all older New Yorkers seeking assistance are supported by the city and the community in which they live. The agency looks to continue to fund centers that successfully demonstrate their familiarity and knowledge of the community in which the center is located, which includes serving special populations, planning activities that are culturally aligned with those communities, and providing meals that reflect a cuisine and dietary preference of ethnic and demographic groups of the community. The concept paper also references experimenting with a variety of combinations of service delivery models. In the stakeholder engagement session, centers stated repeatedly, as we stated and restated in the concept paper, one size does not fit all. Many center directors noted that they were operating several models within one center to meet the various needs among a diverse membership. Minimum service levels will most likely still need to be met, or some core functions provided: nutrition, information and assistance, health and wellness programming, education, recreation, and socialization opportunities and community linkages. The program design could vary considerably as a way to promote innovation and to attract members of varying interests and needs. Regardless of the model, these are common themes that unify forward-thinking center directors and administrators: collaboration, responsiveness, accountability, creativity, and of course, dedication. Comments and respond to the older adult senior concept paper are due in October. And a request for proposal, as you stated, Councilwoman Chair Chin, is anticipated in the fall because the contracts will hopefully commence on July 1st, 2021. In conclusion, DFTR and our partners have learned a great deal as we collaborated closely to ensure continuity of services for older adults during the COVID-19 crisis. We continue forward to the ideas and insights from stakeholders concerning how best to structure older adults. The communications and the weekly and the monthly meetings will continue, and the work groups will also continue. Both during and immediate pandemic, for the ongoing evolution of the center network. Our partnership with the council, service providers, advocates, and older adults themselves is key to shaping the future of senior centers as we work collectively to meet the ongoing needs of the aging services in the face of these extraordinary circumstances, and we believe that will continue to be extraordinary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. We will now turn to Chair Chin for questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will ask a couple of questions and then I will turn it over to other committee members to ask questions. Commissioner, on September 4th, I, along with many of my colleagues, sent a letter to the mayor asking a number of questions about the reopening of our city senior centers. Although we are pleased to be engaging with the administration on the reopening process today, we are looking forward to receiving a response letter very soon. Here are some of our outstanding questions until then. What has DFTR learned about the reopening centers from Department of Education's challenges with reopening school? Will senior center reopen under a specific predetermined timeline, or will the reopening of senior center be tied to any kind of metrics, benchmark, such as infection rate, hospitalization, or vaccine available? And when senior center reopen, what safety measure will be adopted to protect seniors from COVID? If any models for senior center reopening are being considered, are you exploring hybrid models? Is the agency consider offering COVID-19 testing on site? And will DFTR hire a staff or provide a staff to coordinate testings? We'll start with that.
Okay, so let me try to parse out each one of those as to the best of my ability. First and foremost, the safety of older adults in New York City is our top priority. Any discussion, decision to reopen is going to be guided by the public health authorities. It remains to be determined exactly when congregate sites will reopen. We have no clue. In the interim, senior center providers continue to serve their members virtually and remotely. Since the onset of the pandemic, senior centers served grab-and-go meals. We are looking forward to working with them on the reopening models. We have several scenarios that we have developed with the work group, which include a still, stay, pause, stay at home safely, but because the Department of Health has already established that food insecurity is an opportunity to relax the pause and the stay at home rules, that grab and go may be an option that we can explore. We have also had the cooling center experience, which tells us what some of the protocols can be if we reopen, or even if we introduce a grab and go model, which are giving out masks, having the appropriate PPE for all people who enter, ensuring that they have them, staff having the guidance and the protocols, also making sure that we have all of the, some centers were taking temperatures. That's another thing that we're looking at. Currently, we have about 6 to 8 senior facilities, I don't remember the exact number, excuse me, who are serving as testing sites for the public. That is something that we're also exploring. What will be the testing availability in senior centers, and what would be the conditions? That's exactly what we're working on with the Department of Health. What would be the conditions under which we would have to close, should that unfortunately happen, and or what would happen with individuals, both for the individuals, the staff, as well as the older adults. So that we are exploring many things simultaneously in preparation for reopening. Do we have a date definitive? No. I think the science is not clear yet as to when we could congregate again in facilities. We're also looking at the size of our facilities. You know, if social distancing remains a requirement, how can we do that? We do have some experience from the cooling center experience that we saw were good models for keeping people socially distanced within senior centers, but that is a very different model than if we were doing food provision. So there are many, many questions, and a lot of these questions will be raised by the network in these work groups that we have. Have a very good representation of participants on those work groups. One work group has 41 participants, another one has 18. And I think the reopening one is the one that has, I think, 41 participants, where we're getting rich ideas and concepts and things that are doable. And then based on those discussions, we go back to our sister agencies and try to set up some protocols.
So are you saying that you don't have any specific timeline that you are aiming for? I mean, just like the Department of Education, they have a timeline that they had open, you know, in
the
September,
that,
and then they have to push back. So we hope that we don't have to do that once we plan to reopen the centers.
So I'll give you 2 timelines that we had, 2 timelines that we're working on. The one timeline is the November 1st transition from Get Food back to DFDA Direct. All right, so that the meal provision for older New Yorkers will be transferred from Get Food NYC to DFDA. And that is scheduled for November 1st. In anticipation of that, with the reopening group, we are exploring, would it be possible to do an earlier reopening, quote unquote reopening, of the food program involving the network, so that it is not a direct provision, but one that may use a model like Grab and Go or Meals on Heels, using the center network as the providers of food. So that's one of the, we are exploring that as we speak. We've been exploring that for 2 or 3 weeks. What would that look like? What would we need if that were possible? We haven't gotten clear guidance from the Department of Health on that yet. We still need to look at what the exposure and the vulnerability to the older adult is surrounding that. But that's one of the options that we're looking at. So we know that we are planning for a November 1 transition. Earlier on, we thought that we would have a September opening. That has been moved, and we were informed early in July that it did not look like we were looking at any opening, actual opening of congregate sites until before the end of this year, as congregate sites as we know them.
But even if you, I mean, during the summer, you have open up, what, 70 something site as cooling centers?
Yes. Yeah.
So weren't there good, case study with those centers?
Oh, yes,
in
yes.
terms
That,
of, right?
all of that experience, Chairwoman Chin, is what's leading us to look at and to propose the notion that we should bring the network back into a grab and go model, either before the November 1st deadline or at least by the November 1st deadline.
Now, it's
and let that be a choice for older adults if they choose to have a grab and go model, or some might choose to still receive a direct meal because of their own concern or their family concerns about them leaving their homes.
now, you're talking about the scheduled timeline will be November 1st, right? So does DFTA have the statistic that they could provide back to the provider, to the centers? Because centers were asked to help register seniors for the Get Food program. So far, we haven't, seen any statistics. So, for example, if a center, all of a sudden, the number of seniors have doubled or increased by a large number, how will be the funding, how the funding will be provided for them to serve an extra number of senior, whether you're doing grab and go or home delivered meals?
So let me give you some numbers first so that we can put this in context, right? And that is something that has been discussed in the reopening discussion with the providers. Today, Get Food has served over 127,000 New Yorkers. Of those, 73,500 are older adults. And of those, 21,150 are what we call DFTA legacy clients, DFTA clients, DFTA affiliated clients. So the network, the DFTA network has the capacity to serve up to 30,000 older adults. We've done that survey. They've told us that they have the capacity to do that currently. Remember, pre-pandemic, we were serving up to 25,000 daily through our network of agencies. The 249 senior centers and the 38 affiliated sites. So with the over 300 sites, we're serving anywhere between 21,000 to 25,000 on an average daily basis. What we've also done and are doing now is that we've collected the data of the difference between the 21,000 and the 53,000. The network of providers have been very clear that they would like access to those names so that they can do some outreach. Some have been more interested in that than others, but it is clearly something that we are looking to making sure that here we have a new 30,000, 40,000 older adults who have said, I'm food insecure, and that they've raised their hand, who were living independent lives. Those individuals may find themselves in need, and so that we need to do some assessment. We have just done a survey. I don't know the results yet. Between Get Food and DFDA, we've done a survey of the 73,000 older adults and asked them meals that they're interested in, the frequency of meals, are they still interested in continuing those services, and a variety of other questions. And I'll be more than happy to share those results with you as soon as they're finalized. And we will be sharing those with the reopening group and eventually with the broader network once we socialize them within the reopening group. So that is an issue that we're looking at. And then, of course, the question becomes your always question, which is, how is it that we're going to support this fast growing need of older adults? And that is what we're looking at, to work closely with you and OMB on addressing those issues.
I guess initially, one question that we still haven't gotten answer to is the amount of money that's still available in the Get Food program. I mean, that could be transfer over back to the senior center when they are, serving extra seniors and the seniors in need. So that's something the administration really need to deal with. But I want to make sure that.
I was going to say, I don't have that information to give you. I can give you the number of clients, and I don't have that data for you.
Well, we're trying to still get that data from the administration because it was a lot of money to begin with. And we want to make sure DFDA get the share for our older adult population. But looking at the data that you just gave us, that's a large number of seniors that needs to be served. And so I think one of the questions that came up when Caitlin was doing her, giving her testimony is like, in your new RFP, one of the big questions is like, what's the number of seniors that the administration is planning to serve and the number of senior centers? Because right now we have 249. So that is something that we want to see also within the concept paper.
Right. I'm going to the other thing that we're looking at, Chairwoman Chin, and I think Judy could talk to this also, that we've been discussing is, we see this population, not only this growth that we saw in interest, possibly in aging services, but we also have the competing demand of population growth. And every borough in New York City will experience population growth. And yet we've also mapped out, and we're sharing that with the provider community, the reopening group. We've mapped out where senior centers exist, where the growing populations are. And as I said in my testimony, we are noticing major geographic gaps, what we're calling senior deserts. And we need to address that either through transportation, satellites, or other kind of services. So that all of that goes into what will this service profile look like? What will and what will be the response to this growing service, demographic?
I think one of the other part of the population that I don't want us to forget, and it came up in the testimony from the provider, I think it's from Pia, the more frail elderly.
Judy.
They need their services. And I think one of my favorite topic is how do we deal with these private social adult daycare who's taking advantage of our seniors. And we cannot overlook that population. So I just wanted to make sure that in the senior center concept, that you also look at how do you provide for this population that are, that are more frail, that need the socialization, and they need more services, but they should also be connected to a center and not being taken advantage of by these private social adult daycare.
That's a wonderful suggestion, and we can use our social adult daycare centers as models, and then look at some integration opportunities. So that thank you for that, because that's one area we haven't been looking at in terms of reopening. I'm nodding at Judy here. That we need to look at, either more social adult daycare centers as an option within the RFP, or looking at more integration of that, because I think that is a concern that several of the providers have raised. Making sure that we don't forget the older or the younger older who is infirmed.
Yeah, so I think we look forward to working with you on that. I'm going to pass it over to some of my colleagues who's waiting to ask questions. And we also been joined by Councilmember Traeger. So I'll turn it back to the committee council.
Thank you. I will now call on council members in the order they have used the Zoom raise hand function. Council members, remember to use the Zoom raise hand function if you have any question for our panelists. Please also remember to keep your questions to 5 minutes. Sergeant at Arms will keep a timer and I will let you know when your time is up. Commissioner and members of the administration, you will be left unmuted during council member questions for ease of answering. Councilmember Vallone.
Starting time.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you to our Chair Chin. Thank you to the providers who testified first. It's always good to hear your voice. We miss your faces too, seeing everyone at City Hall. I hope everyone had a blessed holiday this weekend for those who were celebrating. I think Chair Chin, as always, hit it on the head. And I think everyone in this room and virtually are the advocates and the staunch protectors of our seniors. And Commissioner, thank you for your testimony. But what we're missing were some dates and facts that we could give back to the seniors who are going to ask us, well, when will my center open? When will I be able to go there to receive some COVID relief? When will I be able to receive a meal from there? And one of the providers used the term cautiously trepidatious for the morning. I think that pretty much sums it up. I heard no clue about when reopening, and then I heard November 1st and a possible different other date for food metric models. So what I'd like to do in our time, because we only have 5 minutes, is to not say that we're not prepared, but look at those dates, look at other jurisdictions who are opening and how we are going to prepare, because we will open. So we haven't had any testimony today on there will be a day when we are open. And when that day comes, we are going to do A, B, and C. We can't just say we're waiting for guidelines. We need additional, my favorite word, metrics and protocols. We have to be prepared for the day we are open, and when we are open, what that day will look like. And in the interim, what we're doing until we get to that day, so that we can give our seniors detailed information and how that's going to happen. So my first question would be is whenever the day comes, whether it's November 1st or some other day, because it will come, what will these centers look like? And what would your vision be on that first day? What type of services would there be to be provided? Is it going to start with meals? Would it be some type of PPE providing? Would it be some type of limited ability? And how would the seniors know that information? So that would be my first question.
So to answer you, sir, good morning. Great to see you too.
Good morning.
We are planning and preparing. So we don't have a date definitive, because the date definitive really depends on the safety and the guidance from the public health experts. And we still don't have any information on the opening of schools and the impact of that. We don't have any information on the opening of schools.
That's not true. Schools are trying to open. They're trying to get back. There's chaos because it wasn't planned correctly, and there's been a lot of conflict on that. We're not going to spend the day on the schools reopening, but now we need to take that step of saying we're planning for a day and what that day will look like and what we can do to get there. So that's what I want to hear.
We are planning for that day. We are planning for one date definitive is for the transfer of the Get Food back to the DFTA network. All right, so that's what we're planning for, from the transfer of Get Food New York to DFTA. Whether that, and we're looking at 2 scenarios in that case, and that's November 1st. And we are looking at either a continuation of the direct meal delivery, as Get Food does it with private providers doing direct meal deliveries. And we're also looking at and exploring currently with providers on another option, which is a hybrid, meaning some older adults will continue to get direct food delivery. And then some older adults may get their food through their provider network through a grab and go model or a Meals on Heels. And those are the.
So the 2 food programs are where we're going to basically be looking at off the bat, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there going to be any change into the reimbursement for the providers during this COVID crisis? Because with or without COVID, we've always had reimbursement questions on an annual basis, and now we are stretched more than ever for $1. Is there any change as to the reimbursement for the food programs and for overall costs?
For the DFTA provider program, there is no challenges with reimbursement. However, as an entire network, as Chairman Chin mentioned earlier, there may be the issue of an increased older population being served. We will have to address that.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair. And I just maybe somewhere in the testimony, we could also bring up if the use of some equipment or testing that could be provided while we open also, because I think one of the #1 demands of all of us as council members in our offices is folks, especially now while we're reopening and folks are fear of winter coming, for additional equipment and masks and some basic essentials. So maybe we can include that into our senior centers also. Thank you very much.
Sir, the senior centers have received PPE equipment throughout. We've given over 2 million pieces of PPE to senior centers throughout the city of New York in anticipation, even with cooling centers and in anticipation that they open. We have also, for your information, when I was referring to the school opening, it was what was their experience after they opened, not in the planning. We've been using a lot of that experience as well as the cooling center experience to inform our planning process.
Well, the senior centers quickly ran out in my district of equipment, and I had to go through our individual office to provide that. So it was a success, but we need to continue that. And the demand of the seniors are our largest demographic, and it's difficult for them to be mobile, especially in a district like mine that doesn't have public transportation. So they're completely dependent on all of these. So let's continue to provide that, and thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vallone. We will next hear from Councilmember Deutsch, followed by Councilmember Jonai. Councilmember Deutsch.
Starting time.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Commissioner. And first, I want to thank all the providers who gave testimony today. I have a few questions. So number one, how does DFTA conduct outreach to determine if there are seniors who are suffering from depression during the last 6 months? And what services are available? And does DFTA collaborate with Thrive NYC? And if yes, how does the outreach work if home visits may not be permitted because of COVID? So that's the first part of my question. And then I have a second part. Does DFTA have data of how many seniors were affected by COVID-19? And what has DFTA learned from the last 6 months on how to do things differently?
So thank you for the question. In terms of one of the areas where the provider network, as well as other partners and volunteers have been engaged in during this pandemic, has been wellness calls and combating social isolation. There were the 2 primary goals during this pandemic and even before this pandemic, because social isolation causes great impact on all of us. But for older adults, it also has health implications, serious health implications, such as high blood pressure and cardiac issues. And so we've focused very aggressively on wellness calls. All services are provided virtually. As I said before, there are over 1 million, 1.7 million, close to 2 million wellness calls that have been done to over 171,000 individuals. And on a regular basis, people are in communication, whether that is through the Center Network themselves, who do regular calls, through the Thrive geriatric mental health programs, or through volunteers, because we had a public service campaign that was led by Lin-Manuel, encouraging New Yorkers to call older adults just so that we could combat social isolation. So there's been a lot of work in this area, sir, and I'm really happy that you asked that question, because it's something that we continuously want all New Yorkers engaged in. Call and reach out, call them, ask them how they're doing, and if possible, you know, do it, run an errand for them. As far as the number of older adults affected by the pandemic, I can get you that number, and the number is vast because it goes from different stages of health standings. All right, and I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Deutsch. Now we'll hear from Councilmember Jonai.
Starting time.
Thank you. Let me first thank the chair for this very important hearing. And Commissioner, thank you. You were extremely helpful during the beginning stages and the work that we did together with your office to make sure that the food insecurities amongst our seniors, we met those challenges together. And for that, I'm forever grateful. And so am I refer to them as teenagers, not seniors. We'll never forget the work that we've done together to at least accommodate their food insecurities. I'm going to piggyback, Commissioner. I know that your hands are tied. And I know that if you had a magic wand, we would be in a different place. If we all had a magic wand, we would be somewhere else today. And I talk about this administration and the inability for them to make a decision. After our beaches and parks were opened, I immediately called for our senior centers to be able to begin doing outdoor programming, not even indoor programming. And it was met with pushback. There was no reason, there's no science behind it, there's no metrics behind the denial, except that we kept our seniors, our teenagers, prisoners in their own home. And between now and November 1st, Commissioner, what is it that we're going to learn that we already don't know? In other words, I believe there's a push to reopen up our senior centers sooner than later. We know the direct benefit. We know how to prevent the risk of the spread of the virus and what protocols need to be in place. And my real fear is come November, we're going to say, well, it's really cold out there and the need for our senior centers won't be that great because of the weather. And let's push this till springtime, which will undermine and give us a full year of imprisonment of our seniors. And no one talks about the anxiety that we've given our seniors. And not without cause, but the anxiety that we still continue to promote, that God forbid you come outside or even to seek health care, let alone mental well-being or physical needs that you may have, you will be writing your own death sentence. Our seniors know better. They know how to protect themselves. They know what needs to be done. And every day that goes by that these centers are not open is an injustice. So my question is to piggyback on Councilman Vallone's question, and I love his directness. Why November 1st? What assurances? How do we get the word out now so our seniors see some stability in their day-to-day lives? And it's just more than food insecurities. We've addressed the food insecurities by home delivery. Our seniors need to come out of their homes, receive that physical interaction with one another, safely, of course, and an environment where they can get their exercise and go back to some daily routine. So November 1st is not around the corner, although it is around the corner. What assurances can I have from you, Commissioner, that this will happen, that we'll have enough time to get out the word, the programming that we can expect so that we can prepare them mentally, as well as our centers? And the injustice, the follow-up, that all of our senior centers lost all of our discretionary funding that we provided them. Never to be able to recapture that funding on some vital programs that have created stability and are necessary for our communities. And it looks like we're going to be doing the same thing all over again. We're going to cut their programming funding, and they're going to be in dire straits, not being able to offer the programs that our communities have benefited from. Thank you, Commissioner.
In terms of outdoor activities, as programs have requested guidance on outdoor activities, we go back to the Department of Health, and in some situations, depending on the activity, they have been granted permission to conduct those activities, particularly around health issues. And so that's one of the ways we've been addressing that. I wish I could give you a time definitive when senior centers would open, but that is really dictated about by public health, the public health crises, and to ensure the safety of the older adults, which is why we're looking at bringing back the network into the food provision opportunity, because that is some sense of normalcy again, introducing some sense of normalcy back into the provision of older adult services as we have known them.
Commissioner, thank you for that. And Chair, thank you for the giving me the extended period of time that I need. We're opening pools October 1st. Bronx House, a senior center with various programs, has a pool. That same senior will be able to participate and get the pool exercise they need, but they can't go into the same room or next door to be able to get other programming, including other exercise and therapy and food. Commissioner, let's grab the bull by the horn and not the tail. I'm counting on you to help lead the charge. You've got our support. The entire council is going to be pushing for this, and we'll be behind you as you push to open up these senior centers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. Are there any other Council Member questions at this time? Council members, if you have questions, remember to use the Zoom raise hand function and I will call on you. Seeing none, I will turn it back to Chair Chin.
Thank you. Commissioner, you know what I love to talk about, the funding. We didn't get the 10 million that was promised in the second tranche of the model budget senior funding. We didn't get the 5 million that was baseline last year for the food service worker and the food program. And we didn't find out about that until after the budget was passed. And then also providers are protesting about the indirect costs that was promised. And so I want to work with you to make sure that funding gets back. Because if we expect the center to reopen and to provide all these services, are they going to have adequate funding? And will provider, if we ask them to start cooking again, you know, for whether it's grab and go program, are they going to be expecting new funding for this purpose?
So I know that you're one of the strongest allies and advocates to support aging services and to get more funding in that direction. And I applaud you for that. And the network applauds you for that. The fiscal reality is one that is dire, and we're all facing that. But I'm not going, we always know that needs outpace the resources, and now even more so. That being said, if we, should we be fortunate enough to open before November 1st, let's say October 15th, or the last week of October, just to have the grab and go experience, or even if we do it November 1st to bring the network back into the provision of food. The money for the population, as we know it, up to 30,000 meals can be provided by the network because DFTA's funding is available at that level.
But some of that funding was used for other purposes. So I think that you need to talk with the provider and see, what the needs are.
I don't believe that any of the food money was used for other purposes. We have food money beginning October 1st through the end of the year. There is a full complement of food money. What was not available was which was part of the budget negotiations. The first quarter of food money was taken away from the contractors, knowing that they were not going to be able to use that money. And it was taken away from Department for the Aging, the $4 million, which was the first quarter of food service. All right, so that was part of the budget negotiations.
But if they're gonna do the grab and go, let's say, and also with the home deliver, they would definitely need additional resources. I mean, it would make sense for them, for the providers to do both. For their members who cannot come and pick up the meal, and you have to have resources to deliver them. I mean, in the beginning, they were doing that, but because they didn't have the resource, the capacity to do the food deliveries, and that's why it went over to the Get Food, which everybody agreed was not the best for our seniors. So, and I agree with you that we got to get the providers back into, providing the food to the members. And from the statistic that you just gave us earlier, there's like another, there's another close to 50,000 new seniors that are not in the network that were getting food from Get Food NYC. So there's
I just want to clarify. The Get Food program does not cease for older adults. Get Food program would continue. So that 50,000, as you just mentioned, would continue to receive food through Get Food, should they choose to. The question then becomes, should we expand? Should they be interested in getting DFTA funding? DFTA meals, then we need to figure out how the funds become fungible so that we can support that additional shift from Get Food to DFTA. That is
so how are you surveying these people? I'm sure that if you're giving them the choice, they would love to be part of the network. And these are, new seniors who are not connected to the senior center. And that's what I asked earlier, that the providers would love to have those contacts so that they can bring them into their network. I mean, that would make the most sense, because they were not getting nutritious food in the beginning because they didn't follow DFTA's guideline. And so, there was a lot of frustration in the beginning. And I do not support, paying, private contractor to do not a great job. And everybody agrees. I've heard from so many of my colleagues of all the problem that started. And that's why we want the providers to take back this responsibility, and we have to provide the resources for them. So the money that's in the Get Food will hand the money over. It's simple as that. I mean, we have to demand that they hand the money over. So the service provider who are taking care of our senior can take care of this new population. Commissioner, if you and I, if we have to meet with OMB, I'll sit down with you and them, and we got to fight for this money. You know, it's like, come on, you know, they owe us the 10 million, the 5 million. These were money that was promised, and these are money that was so needed for the center to run just the basic. Come on, you know, it's just like, that's unacceptable. I know we're in a financial crisis, but the city can find the money. The amount of money that was in the Get Food program is such a shame that how it's been wasted. So I think we have to fight to get that resources for our provider so the seniors can be taken care of.
We are in common cause about getting the network involved. And we're also in common cause to make sure that food insecurity is addressed for all older adults. And the city is making that effort through the Get Food program currently. Our goal is to bring back some level of normalcy, to bring the provider network. I believe that we will be able to support that, but I agree with you. Resources are always do not match, need and increased need.
Well, the resources are there, just that they're not, they're not they're not given to our seniors. As we noticed, that senior is not a priority to this administration. And that's a shame. This population is growing, and we have to make the demand. I mean, now we don't even have a deputy mayor that oversees DFTA that can work with us. I had an appointment with the deputy mayor, and then I found out he resigned. So who's taking care of our seniors? I mean, in addition to the food, I know that in your testimony, we talk about, the virtual programming, and that's important. But it also means additional funding. A lot of seniors don't have computers or are not tech savvy like you and me. So how do we make sure that they are involved, right? And I know that the city, they were giving out iPads to NYCHA senior resident, and that was not that successful. A lot of them don't have internet. It's like they just assume everybody has a computer and everybody has internet. So what happened to this group of seniors? So I think that's why in the center reopening, we need to look at, different models, like, the hybrid where seniors can come in. And you have great, examples that you learned from the cooling center. Where seniors showed up to the cooling center. And I think I remember a conversation with you. A lot of them show up not because they need the co-air, because they need some socialization. And they were so happy to find out that their center was the cooling center and they can go meet up with their friends. So, as you hear from my colleague, they want the centers to be reopened again so they can go and meet up with their friends. And we can do this, we can do this in a hybrid model, maybe not every day, but that's part of the planning process to really try to get these centers to reopen safely, yes, but as quickly as we can. I mean, we should be planning this all along.
And we are Chairwoman Chen. I have utmost confidence in the thoughtfulness and the collaboration with the providers, the 41 providers, and anyone else is welcome to join us, who have been discussing reopening plans. All of the considerations that have been raised today are raised among the providers, and what we're doing is collecting data and to come up with a plan that just makes sense, and getting that plan approved. But it has to be done in concert with the provider network. They know what they can do. They know what the limitations are, both financially and physically. And we all share the common concern of the safety and the health of older adults. We've been planning now for over 3 weeks with this provider network. We've been looking at planning with the Department of Health for 5 weeks, 6 weeks. We've worked with the Department of Parks to come up with some provisions there. And so a lot of that collaboration and cross collaboration with city agencies is going on. And we're working towards, a November date, a late October, mid-October, late November, November date.
But November 1st is the Get Food. But if we can, have you talked to every single provider in the network about reopening? Or have your staff talked to everyone?
What we've done so far, Chairwoman, is that we have asked each of the centers what is their capacity. But no, I'm trying to be as thoughtful as possible and to get the best information from a variety of providers so that we could not come up with a one-size-fits-all approach again, so that we can come up with approaches that make sense given the diversity and the complexities of the provider network. And which is why their input is so important to this planning process and to the final determination.
I mean, what about—
Contrary to what people say that we're not in communication, we are.
I mean, what about surveying the providers? Because I know one of the things that, for the school reopening, they talk about ventilation system, and even with the council, even with opening up our district office, there was this whole set of protocol that we have to follow every single day, and the deep cleaning and all that procedures before we can even open up our district office. So there are got to be some protocol in place.
Yes, all of those
providers can look at and prepare for. And also you have, different types of centers. You have some centers who don't have windows that they can open or don't have good ventilation system because they're in the basement or whatever, and they might need additional resources to get those things fixed so that they can be able to reopen. I mean, those are the issues that I hope that you are talking to provider about, listening to what their needs are.
The issues resolve around capacity, physical plant, and needs, and also transportation. I mean, so all of the key areas are being addressed: physical plant, client needs, organizational needs, and don't forget senior center staff. We also want to protect and ensure their safety. So all of those are part of the planning process. Do I have a plan for you today that I can tell you on November 1st, we're going to do X, Y, and Z? Absolutely not. But you will have one way in advance of November 1st, because the contractor said that they need at least 2 weeks to make at a minimum 2 weeks so that they can be prepared to open. That was one of the last discussions we've had.
So even if they do the November 1st, you were talking about, even starting with grab and go, you have to give them enough notice so they can start, preparing for that.
Right. And
informing the seniors.
They've been very clear about that. Even if grab and go, which is the desired model by most providers, even that we would need a minimum of 2 weeks. Some said 1 week. That makes me too anxious, but most have said 2 weeks to turn on the service, because we've had so many discussions, and we're also looking at other activities that we can also do during that time. Very limited, but what could they be?
I think in your concept paper, you were talking about a community need assessment that shows the senior service deserts.
Yeah.
Can you share some of that with us?
Sure. My response to you on that is, well, three things came out, four main things came out of our community needs, and there are many others, but the main one is the projected growth in the older population. We were not surprised by that, but what we were surprised was how it crosses all boroughs. We thought that one borough would experience more growth than others, but it's across all 5 boroughs. We're also we looked at the, we were able to get the projected growth by CD, by community district, all right? Which then indicates where would we need additional centers, facilities, or more capacities by existing centers in a particular area. The diversity of the CDs, you know, the shifting of who the older population is and has become over time. We also were able to identify, you know, transportation deserts. So there's 2 kinds of transportation deserts. There's the transportation desert that's there because we don't have enough bus routes or enough subway stations. So that's one transportation desert that we need to address for older adults. But we're also looking at transportation services that are not commensurate with the needs of older people in a geographic area because there is no facility for them to receive services. So we're looking at that. And we're also working with Fordham University on an impact analysis to show what the physical and mental health benefits of enrollment. We want to make the case of why senior centers, the value, and to make it evidence-based, the value of senior centers, how it promotes additional evidence that programming centers are designed to spur better health, better well-being, and looking at that in terms of not only the actual benefits of going to a senior center, to an individual, but how that looks across ethnic and income levels. And that to us is an important piece that we're working on right now with Fordham University. I'm looking forward to those findings, and all of that will be ready for sharing with the network as soon as we get it.
Okay.
And in addition to that, we're doing an older adult survey. We really want to go back to getting the customer voice in our services.
So in your concept paper, you didn't talk about how many contracts will be awarded under this.
It's a concept paper. It's a concept paper to get some of the best thinking out there, some of the best research, so that it can inform the RFP.
So also in the, you have a section on emergency preparedness, but there is nothing in the concept paper that reflects what we talked about before about expanding cooling center hours, staffing overtime, and having programming and meaningful meals. That was not included in the concept paper.
No, the concept paper, we try to keep it top level, high level, and let the provider network respond to that and give us the issues that, the more granular issues that they would like us to address.
Well, I think for the senior population, when they go to the senior center, I mean, it'll be great to really have programming in place, and whether it's almost like they're going to a senior center and staying longer, and not just going there and just sit around, you know, with air conditioning. I don't think that's what.
Yeah, we were surprised. Well, in the cooling center, the activities this year were limited, but they had their own engagements that they did. They were clustering, you know, well socially distant, but they were talking to each other and staying there longer, which is why we knew that it was not about cooling center as much as it was social engagement. But the concept paper is to solicit the thinking and the issues from the network so that we could make sure that those are included in the procurement process.
Well, we just wanted to make sure that within the concept paper that the idea is to provide more funding so that we can increase services to the growing number of seniors, and not so the number of center definitely would be increasing rather than decreasing, especially like just from the data that we got from the Get Food NYC.
One of the other issues that has come out of the research and the community needs piece that we did was that given the growth, that there is a potential for an additional 17 to 18 centers required to meet the growth.
That's it?
Huh?
I mean, we have 10 centers that the city council funded with discretionary funding that serves immigrant population. And they are big. I mean, they are large center that serve a large number of seniors. There's already 10 out there. So, and you have all that extra 50,000 who's not connected. I'm not sure 17, or the number that you just gave me, is going to be sufficient to meet this growing population.
That is true. That was early COVID data. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and every day somebody is becoming a senior. Yeah.
The number may be higher than 17, but the number right now is 17 to 18.
Yeah, I think that number is definitely going to be much bigger than that. Commissioner, I know that you have to step off at noon.
Yes.
So I will definitely let you go. But I think that we can work together, and we need to set up a meeting with OMB to talk about promised funding that was taken away. We should do that, and we'll reach out to you and make sure that we get a meeting with OMB. Even though we don't know who the deputy mayor is going to be responsible for DFTA, if we don't get a good answer from OMB, then you and I need to sit down with the mayor, right? If there's no deputy mayor, then we'll go to the mayor, right, Commissioner?
I thank you always for your strong advocacy. I respect it and I admire it. And I thank you for this opportunity. And I also thank you for the consideration of time that I need to run off to another conference for area agencies on aging. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I think that there are extra money that need to be available for the provider if they get back into providing food for our seniors. I think the money that they have is not sufficient because of the growing number. So I think you and I need to talk about what is the increased funding that we need, and we need to fight for it. Once we get the provider started, we got to make sure the resources are there for them to provide the nutritious food to our seniors and the new seniors that will be joining them.
Thank you.
So thank you, Commissioner, for being here today. And I wish you stay healthy and well, and we'll see you soon.
Same to you and your family. And thank you to the providers who participated.
I just have a couple more questions. Are there other questions from my colleague? Okay, so I just have a couple more questions on the concept paper and funding. According to the New York State Office for the Aging, DFTA received a total of $6.3 million from the Family First COVID Relief Act and $20.4 million from the CARE Act, for a total of $26.7 million. Today, how much of that funding have been spent? And how much is committed and how much is yet to be committed? Can you share that breakdown of services?
Sure. We received 10.4 million for emergency procurements. We received 8.3 million, of which 3 million has been spent for home delivered meals, and that is traditional home delivered meals. And then there was when Grab and Go was transferred to the Department of Sanitation to Get Food New York, $8 million were spent for the month of June, those services. So that went to them. So that is how the 26.7 million has been spent. We have some money that we've held for home delivered meals because we kept seeing an increase in that and trying to make sure that we can continue that for as long as possible.
Okay. Oh, when it comes to home delivered meal, in July, we heard that there was a wait list for clients in Staten Island. I was hoping Councilmember Rose was going to ask that question, needing home delivered meal. Is there a wait list citywide for home delivered meal?
There is no wait list for home delivered meals. What we have experienced, and I've shared this with you and other members, is that we have experienced an increase of about 2,500 people who need home delivered meals beyond the traditional 17,000 that we served through the home delivered meals program. And that is why we've been the $8.3 million is to ensure that we can continue those services through the end of the contract period.
Oh, so there was an increase of 2,500 people that wanted home delivered meal, and they're getting it, so they're not on a wait list.
No. Anyone who calls, needing in-home services, and the minute that they're identified as food insecurity, they're immediately turned onto the Get Food program or the home delivered meals program. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't realize you were still on, Commissioner, that you had to leave.
Oh, I thought, I'm sorry. I thought I was not trying to be rude. I am very happy to get off because I'm very anxious right now that I'm going to be late.
You were supposed to get off at noon.
All right, but I don't know how to do that. So let me see if I can do this. I need to be technologically trained. Goodbye, and thank you all very much.
Yeah, and the remaining questions, we'll send it over
yes,
to you and the administration, and definitely have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay, so I think we can, since there's no other questions, and whatever questions I have left, we can send it over to the commission, to the commissioner. Newsart, is that okay?
Yeah.
And then we can hear directly from the providers and advocates and people who have signed up.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yep. So we will now turn to public testimony. Once more, I'd like to remind everyone that unlike our typical council hearings, we will be calling individuals one by one to testify. Council members who have questions for a particular panelist should use the raise hand function in Zoom, and you'll be called on after each panel has completed their testimony. For panelists, once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you, and the Sergeant at Arms will give you the go-ahead to begin after setting the timer. Testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. Please wait for the Sergeant to announce that you may begin before delivering your testimony. Our first panel will be the Honorable Gail Brewer, Michelle Rodriguez, Peter Chang, and Thomas Camber. I will now call on the Honorable Gail Brewer.
Thank you very much, Chair Chin and the members. I'm just going to submit testimony, but I will quickly summarize. So I think we all know that during the pandemic, one of the challenges for the senior centers was just the change constantly as to what the list was, who we're serving. It was really, really hard. And I want to thank all of the providers, Live On and everybody else, and certainly Schuler, Warren, Puder in our office, who was phenomenal. Now, here we are, 2020, getting towards the fall. And I just want to point out that in terms of more seniors, and the chair indicated, 2010 census, there were 280,000 seniors in Manhattan. We'll see what the 2020 census brings. And there are about 1.3 in the 5 boroughs. In terms of COVID, we lost almost 18,000 in terms of seniors in the 5 boroughs. That's a lot of people. And these are sobering. We do thank DFTA and the commissioner for all that they did. But I am concerned about the RFP, Older Adult Center Concept Paper, because it is a 3-year concept. I don't think we have enough information to be releasing this RFP at this time. There are so many uncertainties. One, what will the public health guidance be in terms of its recommendations for reopening in-person senior center programming? I know you've had some discussion about when it will be, outdoors, indoors. I can tell you the ones I know are not clear. When will the older adults be comfortable in returning? And are we prepared, God forbid, for a second wave of transmission? These are really outstanding needs. There is no question that these senior centers, more than any other nonprofit perhaps, address the food access, they combat social isolation, they deal with wellness, they do remote programming. These are all great things, but a lot of seniors don't have tablets, they don't have affordable broadband, and they're not comfortable using them. So access to food. We know that with the council member and others, we've worked on our Fresh Food for Seniors program way before COVID. I understand the need. And we know that we've all worked on congregate and home delivered meals to be fresh and healthy and so on, and to be culturally and religiously appropriate. Despite all the efforts, Get Food NYC, there have been content issues, delivery issues, oversight issues, and there are great improvements. We don't want to go back to the past. We still need to work on this program. We have to make sure that it doesn't fail in the future. We have to worry about the flu season. We have to worry about assistance and sustenance for these seniors. So we really need to do some pilots before you implement an RFP for 3 years. The food service businesses work well. They get contracts, they provide the food, and then they get reimbursed. Is that the way to go? Well, only, as the council member indicated, if there's money. This is really frustrating. We need to fully fund these adult services. They're essential today, they're going to be in the future, and this indirect cost rate funding initiative, it's not right that people who are providing the services do not get fully paid for the past work, and we don't know if this indirect rate, what's going to happen in the contract coming up.
Expired.
So I'm saying slow it down, tweak it, but make sure that this particular RFP doesn't go forward until you have a thorough investigation, address the challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next panelist will be Michelle Rodriguez.
Starting time.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Michelle Rodriguez. I'm the program director for University Settlement, a 134-year-old community-based organization serving over 40,000 children and adults across Manhattan and Brooklyn. I'd like to talk briefly about the concept paper and some concerns we're facing. As we near the 6-month mark of when all senior centers across the city closed down, we've all had the opportunity to envision what our programs will begin to look like when we return. We all look forward to the day when we can safely open our doors to participants with proper guidance procedures from DFTA. There are, of course, many concerns, unanswered questions, fear and frustrations coming from staff as well as participants. With this in mind, I wanted to emphasize the following points when we consider the future of senior centers in New York City. The recent DFTA concept paper offers new and welcomed opportunities to change how we deliver services. However, COVID-19 has led to many unknowns. For example, some of our senior centers draw participants from across the boroughs, who often take public transportation. And understandably, some seniors may not want to travel due to fears of COVID. In addition, COVID can cause day-to-day changes with protocol and potential closures. It's difficult to plan for an RFP when so much is unknown. Therefore, though we look forward to the possibilities in the new concept paper, we believe we should postpone the RFP. Regarding meals for seniors, we understand the need to adhere to the social distancing and safety precautions. However, we must provide flexibility in timing, variety, and delivery. Participants need more options on when and where to pick up meals, what types of meals according to dietary needs, and whether to have grab and go or home delivery. COVID-19 places elders at risk for isolation, negatively impacting their quality of life and emotional and physical health. The city should prioritize that all participants and not just NYCHA residents need to have access to tablets, Wi-Fi, and lessons in order to be able to remain connected to their communities. DFTA should consider outcomes alongside outputs. And while we recognize the importance of data, we should also consider the importance of qualitative data, measuring, for example, length, intensity, and frequency of attendance of participants over the year and the impact these have had over their physical and mental health, and not simply recording the daily number of participants. Finally, DFTA needs to fully trust its community partners as experts of their communities. As we move towards reopening, we hope DFTA recognizes and respects the existing community relationships and vast experience that community partners bring. We believe that everyone, community partners, DFTA, and seniors we support benefit from open communication and equal collaboration between DFTA and community partners. How we open now will affect the future of our programs for years to come. Thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We will now hear from Peter Chang.
Starting time.
Peter, do we have you online?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay, great. Good afternoon, Chair Margaret Chin and distinguished members of the Committee on Aging. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Peter Chin, and I'm delivering the following comments on behalf of the Chinese American Planning Council. CBC's mission is to promote social and economic empowerment of Chinese American, immigrant, and low-income communities. Founded in 1965, CBC is the largest Asian American social service organization in the U.S., providing vital resources to more than 60,000 people per year through more than 50 programs at over 30 sites across the city. COVID-19 has hit our seniors hard. Food insecurity has been a growing issue for seniors, and COVID-19 just compounded. At the Nanshan Senior Center, which I manage, we distribute food to seniors every Thursday, and there's always a long line waiting. Meals provided by senior centers often have been the only reliable source of nourishment for many seniors. I urge the city to consider reopening food services by senior centers in an orderly and safe manner. This is something the seniors greatly need. In regard to the upcoming Senior Center RFP, I respectfully suggest that we postpone it until the senior centers are reopened and have settled down into a new normal. There are just so many uncertainties now, and whatever numbers proposed in the contract will be like a shot in the dark. It would be much better for us to have a clearer picture first, before projecting what we are going to be doing for the next few years. Finally, it may sound like cliche, but it's really important for DFTA to pay for the full costs of providing senior services, including indirect costs, food services, and model budgets. Many senior centers are dependent on discretionary funding and donations to fill budget gaps, and to just provide basic senior services. There's no money to improve site infrastructure and to pioneer innovative programming. This is especially relevant to this moment as we are investing in remote programming and pandemic-proof our sites. Thank you again for giving us the opportunity to speak about issues that impact the seniors we serve. We are grateful to your leadership on these issues and look forward to working with you on them.
Thank you. Our last panelist for this panel will be Thomas Camber.
Starting time.
Hello, my name is Tom Camber. I'm the Executive Director of Older Adults Technology Services, which is a citywide organization that's founded in 2004. We've been providing training and support and programs for older adults around the city and have served over 30,000 seniors, helping them get online. And I want to just briefly encapsulate what we've learned since COVID-19 started, and a couple of quick comments on what we need to do to prepare. Since COVID-19 started, OATS converted all of our training into online-only materials. We had already had about 200 modules of online learning support before COVID, so we were able to create a series of training opportunities and socialization programs for seniors. And those have been extraordinarily successful since the beginning of the crisis. We've had over 60,000 participants in our online calls. A very large percentage of those are from New York City and have been joining for everything from basic training on technology, on how to use Zoom, on how to access services, on how to stay safe, and how do you do online banking and programs like that. They're all available for free to seniors or anyone who wants to participate through seniorplanet.org, which is a publicly available site facing older adults and providing programs for them in a variety of formats. And it also enables people to join and become members and help each other and be helped by people in the Senior Planet network. I should say, by the way, that I'm going to provide a written version of this testimony later today so people can read all the statistics and don't need to take notes. Secondly, we have been working with the city government to help create programs to support other organizations. We've been extremely grateful for the support of the Department for the Aging. Commissioner Cortez Vasquez has been wonderful in supporting the technology initiatives that we've been leading, as well as people from the mayor's office, of the CTO's office, and Do It as well. And we've been able to reach tens of thousands of people with outreach calls, and most excitingly and importantly, have been able to increase connectivity for older adults as a result of a program supported by the mayor's office, where they are providing 10,000 tablets to older adults. This is mentioned by the commissioner in her testimony. Those tablets are supported by T-Mobile, which is providing more affordable, actually free broadband for the seniors that are participating, and they're coming set up, pre-set up and kitted with materials for people to plug directly into Senior Planet training and get support. And then what we did is converted our training operation at Senior Planet into a digital outreach program where we called all 10,000 people over the course of 9 days, but when they launched the program, and reached all of them, and were able to help them get support in using the new tablets and being engaged with them and having really positive results from it. We just did a quick survey just to give a little bit of data for this committee hearing, and we got 108 responses. It was over the course of a day. 96% said they were very satisfied or satisfied with their support from Senior Planet, and 96% also felt more socially connected after receiving the tablet. So these digital tools are really important. Last point would just be to continue supporting this hybrid model. We think the senior centers really need support, but people are going to keep doing things digitally, so we can keep providing training and support in the next phase of all of this, and people are going to continue connecting online as well as through the centers when they reopen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any council member questions for this panel at this time?
Yes, Nusat, I have a couple of questions.
Please.
Yeah. First, I'd like to thank the borough president for coming. I know the borough president is very tech savvy. My question is to Tom with Senior Planet. Are you working with other community-based organizations or like senior center providers to provide some of this training and services in different languages?
Different language. Yeah. Yes, we are. We are doing programming ourselves in different languages directly. So OATS trainings and programming are available in Spanish, Mandarin, Russian, and Bengali. We've been working with partner sites around the city who themselves have linguistic capacity in other languages that we don't currently operate ourselves. So we're able to make referrals. So we have a hotline that people can call into if they have questions, and then we direct those calls from the hotline if we have linguistic needs to other partners who do have languages like Korean or some of the, French, Creole and things like that. So we do get some calls on it. The largest volumes have been Spanish, Chinese, and Russian so far. We've been able to, we just did our first fitness class in Chinese from Senior Planet, but most of our partners in the communities are also getting support from Senior Planet, calling us with questions about how to do Zoom calls, how to organize effective online programming. And we've been using some of our support from the city to provide those services to the local partners around the city.
So do you also work directly with a number of senior centers?
Yeah, we do. We've got, well, first of all, we operate 23 labs with support from DIFTA, where Oates had been training directly in those senior centers around the city. And then the city council members have been supporting Oates to do work in I think we're in 35 different districts as well, doing support with the different centers. And so we've been doing capacity building calls with all of our community partners over the last couple of months on how to organize Zoom sessions and things like that. I could send you a separate email with information, or included in my testimony, just with updates with how those support sessions have been going with the community partners.
Yeah, that would be helpful, because I think going forward, if the centers are, doing virtual programming, they definitely need support. And that's something that the city needs to also look at. As you said, as we heard earlier from other providers, a lot of seniors don't have tablets, don't have Wi-Fi, and they don't know how to use the computer. So a large number of them will not be served. So that is really important. Thank you, Tom.
We can absolutely do that for sure. We have the capacity to help with those.
I think I have another question for the providers. I think whether Peter or Michelle, are you, any one of you participating in the working group that the commissioner talked about earlier with reopening? And have anyone in DIFTA reach out to you regarding suggestions or ideas or needs in the reopening process?
I have not received anything in regard to that. However, I cannot rule out they may have contact central office.
So they haven't contacted center director. I mean, that doesn't. Okay. But you haven't heard from. But you haven't heard from your CEO, right? He didn't tell you, so they might not have contacted him either. Michelle, are you still on?
Yes, I'm in the working group. I am in the working group. We were divided into subcommittees for meals and social services and activities. We took on the task of trying to outline how to conduct social services safely, and we submitted that to the commissioner, but we haven't heard anything back yet. I know that our next meeting, I believe, is October 13th. So we're still working through some kinks, but no, DIFTA has not reached out to us after that. We haven't heard anything from our program officers at all.
Your next meeting is October 13th, so there's no way that the senior center is going to be reopened by then.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're still like meeting a working group, I mean, that's just really, really unacceptable. And if providers haven't been reached out to, I don't know how they're going to be preparing for that. Okay, we'll reach back out to the commissioner on that. Thank you.
Sure.
Nusat, you can call the next panel.
Sure. So our next panel will be Tara Klein, Beth Finkel, Joanne Yu, and Christian Gonzalez Rivera. We will first hear from Tara.
Starting time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Tara Klein. I'm a policy analyst with United Neighborhood Houses. UNH is a policy and social change organization representing 40 neighborhood settlement houses.
Your sound was cutting out.
Oh, I apologize. Can you hear me all right now?
We hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. So UNH is a policy and social change organization. We represent 40 settlement houses in New York City, including 46 senior centers that serve over 53,000 older adults. Senior centers have been enormously creative and adaptive in meeting the evolving needs on the ground during COVID-19. While buildings have remained physically closed, no senior center has ceased operation, and many have been working overtime to serve older adults remotely through wellness calls, benefits assistance, virtual social activities, and more. As we now think about reopening senior centers, many providers in the UNH network have insisted we use a different word than reopening because they have been virtually open and serving older adults continuously. Instead, we should be talking about safely transitioning and returning back to in-person activities. We want to thank Councilmember Chin, Councilmember Levine, the speaker, and all the other members who signed on to the September 4th letter to the mayor asking for a dialogue with the agencies around returning to in-person activities. UNH echoes all of the questions and concerns in that letter. We've heard clearly from our members that they are ready for certain limited in-person activities, such as one-on-one case management, outdoor activities held safely in small groups, and bringing back meal service through grab and go or another mechanism. Food distribution in particular urgently needs to return to the nonprofit senior centers where providers know their communities best. As UNH has seen in other areas like youth services and early childhood education, clear guidelines and communication, flexible start times, and adequate PPE supplies are all essential components of restarting any in-person programming during COVID. It's critical to underscore the harm of recent budget cuts to senior centers and thinking about their post-COVID future. FY21 was a difficult budget year all around, but senior centers were hit especially hard with the delay of the $5 million in kitchen funding, the failure to include the remaining $10 million in original model budget funding, $4 million in COVID-related cuts, and major cuts to the indirect cost rate initiative. These cuts have led senior centers to make difficult decisions around staffing, salaries, and programming. As we approach future budget decisions and the potential for more across-the-board cuts, we must protect senior center funds. And finally, we have many serious questions and concerns around DFDA's new concept paper for senior centers, especially around funding needs and programmatic issues. For instance, the concept paper does not mention the overall number of contracts or what a typical budget should be for a center, although we've seen that in other concept papers across different agencies. And it fails to address expenses like cost escalators and capital needs. So given the current uncertainty around the reopening transition and the fact that this procurement envisions the system for the next 3 or possibly 6 years, we encourage DFDA to clarify their overall vision for serving older adults in a post-COVID world. We anticipate sharing our formal comments on the concept paper with DFDA and the council by their deadline of October 5th. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Tara. Our next panelist will be Beth Finkel.
Starting.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you to Councilmember Chin for her incredible leadership and devotion. I want to thank Gail Brewer. I don't know if she's still on the call, but really great advocates. And I thank the other council members who are part of this and have been part of fighting for older New Yorkers for a very long time. I'm Beth Finkel. I'm the state director for ARP New York. We have over 750,000 members throughout the 5 boroughs of New York City who are 50 years and older. And they have told us repeatedly in research that we have done for decades that they want to stay in their homes and communities. In fact, almost 9 out of 10 tell us that consistently. And going through this COVID challenges, it's been particularly hard on them to do that. And I want to thank all the senior services that have been out there helping them. I'm here representing the consumer. I'm not here representing any organization or any provider. This is about making sure that older adults get the very best services that they can, and at the least don't end up with diminished services, which I think is what so many of us are fearful about. So we know that the fastest growing segment are older adults. I know that you all know that. And we also know that financial hardships are the #1 issue that we're hearing again over and over again from our members. It's about how they can afford to keep living with dignity as they age. We put out a report on Disrupt Disparities, which particularly looked at the 50+ African American, Hispanic, and Asian. And what we found was the economic hardships are even greater for communities of color than they are for the general market. And that's something that I think that we have to keep in mind. As a matter of fact, in gentrifying neighborhoods in New York City, we found that the median income for older whites is as much as $100,000 higher than for older African Americans or Hispanic residents. The council has been very generous over the years in support for older New Yorkers and have really gone to the ramparts to fight for more money continually for older New Yorkers. And I know this is a very difficult year, but literally hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers are counting on you. And so I know that you're going to rise to the occasion and do the very best you can to help us in any way possible. I'd like to also point out that not-for-profit senior serving organizations are counting on you too. They are shouldering much too much of the cost of caring for seniors, and ARP worries about their long-term sustainability because they maintain the neighborhood services for older adults. Not long ago, we spoke with a local not-for-profit that provided home-delivered meals. Nearly 30,000 homebound elderly rely on these home-delivered meals because of the gap, what the city pays and what the actual agencies have to pay out. That gap is not sustainable, and we have to sustain these local not-for-profit organizations that are the first line to helping older New Yorkers. And older New Yorkers are an economic boost to the economies of their local neighborhoods and the city on a whole, and we cannot afford to lose them. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next panelist will be Joanne Yu.
Starting time.
Thank you, Councilmember Chin, for this opportunity to testify before the Council's Committee on Aging. My name is Joanne Yu, and I'm the Executive Director of the Asian American Federation. Before we talk about opening the centers, I'm here to sound the alarm that the Asian American senior population is in trouble. COVID-19 has exposed our city's fragile social services infrastructure that stems from the lack of investments, any meaningful investments in communities of color for decades. There is seemingly little acknowledgement of the Pan-Asian community's needs in the recovery plan. With the well-known statistics as a benchmark, I want to share with you where we were during the pandemic and where we are now, and where we need to be. Before the pandemic, Asian senior programs were receiving 2.7% of the total DFTA contract dollars, and no Asian nonprofit has their own meals contract, always serving as a subcontractor. This funding gap was further exposed during the pandemic when our senior serving groups continued to scramble to meet their needs and stretch their service dollars to ensure that seniors had the food and services they needed during the key isolation periods. The city's food delivery plan remains plagued by random deployment of meals and quality of food, and nonprofit staff are in the possible positions of having to meet client needs, create connections with possible vendors, and worry about their own families. Our member agency staff are conducting thousands of assurance calls to seniors on a daily basis on top of their existing work, and we are also getting reports that mental health clinics are seeing a huge uptick in services. All of this is happening under the rise of anti-Asian violence and hate crimes. Where do we go from here? We need the needs in our senior community is continuing unabated. Even under your leadership and the sympathetic ear of the DFTA Commissioner, we are straining at the seams. With a growing budget deficit that threatens to continue for many years, we ask that you continue to work to ensure that Asian-led agencies are in the best position possible to provide culturally competent services directly to Asian New Yorkers. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last panelist on this panel will be Christian Gonzalez Rivera.
Okay. Starting time.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christian Gonzalez Rivera, and I'm the Director of Strategic Policy Initiatives at the Brookdale Center for Healthy Aging. We're CUNY's Aging Research and Policy Center and a part of Hunter College. Thank you, Chairwoman Chin, for holding this oversight hearing. So we'd like to address both the issues of transitioning to in-person services and also talking about the future. As for the present, we think that senior centers do not need to reopen all services at the same time. For instance, certain activities like walking groups and even some socially distanced studio art classes should be restarted, while congregate meals may still need to be delayed in favor of grab and go, as others have said. To make sure that this is done well, we support the idea to postpone the RFP to give providers more time for this kind of phased reopening. Also, we think that DFTA should open their working group to more stakeholders who can advise them on how to carry out this transition. And, we'll start with us too. Brookdale, for one, stands ready to assist DFTA in this way. As for the future, we suggest that senior centers of the future serve two main functions. First, it should be a place that facilitates access to the city's abundant resources. Second, it should be a place that unleashes older New Yorkers' power to use their knowledge, their skills, and their energy to support fellow New Yorkers regardless of age. And so I'll speak about each of these in turn. So first of all, it's like the sort of idea that senior centers should be older New Yorkers' portal to the city. Senior centers across the 5 boroughs are asked to be just about everything for older New Yorkers, from cafeteria and benefits counselor to art studio and college. And they serve people ranging in age from 60 to 100 and beyond. But why do this when we live in a city that's full of cafes, museums, and so much more? The Senior Center of the Future, importantly, would not be funded just by DFTA, in our point of view. Imagine a future where the Department of Parks and Recreation funds and partners with senior centers to provide exercise classes to older adults, and where HRA provides for benefits counselors, and where senior centers join forces with public libraries, museums, and other institutions to provide cultural offerings, importantly, leveraging the public and private funding that those institutions have at their disposal. And DFTA's primary role in such a senior center of the future should really be to facilitate those partnerships. And what goes on in senior centers should be determined by senior centers, by older adults themselves, not prescriptive government contracts. The second suggestion is really around that the Senior Center of the Future should be an older adult service-centered space in service to the whole city. And basically, to paraphrase former President John F. Kennedy, senior centers should also ask what older adults can do for their city. For instance, most senior center kitchens lie idle when not used for lunch service. Imagine if they could be funded by DHS to cook meals for the homeless, or by DYCD or the DOE to run cooking classes and nutrition education programs for young people that are led by older adults.
I'm expired.
Yeah, one last point. Some senior centers already encourage the participants to share their skills and knowledge by leading classes and workshops for their peers. But why stop there when older adults can actually do that service for all New Yorkers? So again, the idea would be that, this is very different from the way that senior centers have been run in the past and the way that the business as usual, but both being able to have other agencies be able to supply the budget for senior centers would enrich their services and would also have senior centers be not just centers for older adults, but places that are a platform for older New Yorkers to serve their entire city. And as always, Chairman Chin, we stand ready to help you and others to really think through how we can do this in practice. More in the written testimony. And thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Are there any council member questions for this panel?
Yeah, I have a question for Christian. It's always good to see you and for the great work that you do. And I hope that you would respond to DFTA's concept paper. I think in their concept paper, they had different models and they were talking about the comprehensive model. I think it was leaning into some kind of community center. This is true. DFTA centers usually are from Monday to Friday and they close in the evening, they close on weekend. It's not fully utilized and the whole issue, like as you say, with the kitchen, there's so much more we can do. And the partnership, they did talk about a little bit about that in their concept paper, but the example they used was like too simple. You do an event in the library and then you set up a table. It just not in depth. So I think that's something that I hope that your organization would definitely contribute to, and we appreciate that. The other question was for Beth. Beth, AARP is our greatest partner. So on the state level, what are you doing on the state level in terms of really advocating, for more state funding and state guidance on how senior center can provide services again, safely. And the other issue that I raised earlier with the commissioner, when we talked about in their new concept of the future senior center, that they really forgotten about the more frail seniors that are utilizing some of these social adult daycare. And that needs to be incorporated into the concept. And I know that, we need more state supervision on the social adult daycare program because the one that we have in the city, the majority of them, I think most of them, except for the one that we in the council have some oversight, and there's only 9 of them that are truly providing the services that they're required to do.
You're absolutely right on both counts. We're actually meeting with other senior advocates across New York State. We have a group put together, and we are advocating very diligently for more money at the state level. This is exactly the time that we need to do that, because we know that the governor is looking at what his state of the state is going to be and what his budget is going to be. So we are enlisting all of our volunteers across New York State to make sure that we have our voices heard. And let's not forget, it's an election year. State Assembly and State Senate people are running. So I would behoove everyone to make sure that all of the seniors are asking their state legislators and their state senators exactly what they're going to do to increase money for senior services, because it's been pitiful. It's the smallest agency at the state level, and it's had the least amount of increases, except for 1 year that was a pretty good year. Otherwise, New York City by far has done much better job trying to fund seniors. On the part about adult daycare, I'm glad you brought that up, because our members are 50 plus, and a lot of them are caregivers. We know that the average caregiver is a woman in her 50s, and how is she supposed to save for her own retirement and keep going to work if she doesn't make sure that her loved ones are taken care of during the day? We hear a lot from the administration about daycare and worrying about children and care for children, and that's absolutely important, and we have to make sure parents can get to work. But those parents are part of the sandwich generation, and they also are caring for their elderly loved ones. And we have to make sure that we have adequate adult day services, and that people understand what an adult day service is, because we name these things, these names that nobody even knows what we're talking about. And so the general public doesn't even know very often that these services are there for them. So number one, we've got to make sure we have the best services, which we really need to do a lot of work on and get more funding for at the state level. Couldn't agree more. We also have to make sure that people understand it's there for them, because in the end, if we don't do that, we're going to have this cycle of people constantly not prepared for their retirement, and then having to turn back to public services and public benefits to help them maintain dignity as they age. That's not what any of us want. So thank you so much again, Councilwoman, for bringing up these such important issues, and we will do our part in Albany. We promise.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you for your members. I'm a member too. But thank you, for all the advocacy that AARP did. Newsart, you can call the next panel.
Thank you. The next panelists will be Katie Foley, Ruth Finkelstein, Mary Archana Fernandez, and Rachel Shero. We'll begin with Katie Foley.
Starting time.
Hello, thank you so much for the opportunity to testify today. Thank you to Committee Chair Chin and the members of the committee. Self-Help provides home care, community-based services, and affordable housing to more than 20,000 elderly and vulnerable New Yorkers each year, while remaining the largest provider of comprehensive services to Holocaust survivors in North America. Self-Help has been on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our home health aides have been providing in-home care, and our social workers have been checking on their clients to ensure access to food, shelter, and medicine. We've expanded our virtual senior center in order to reduce social isolation among our clients, and our team is working every day to ensure our clients continue to live with dignity through this challenging time. COVID-19 and social distancing were not in our vocabulary 10 years ago when Self-Help started the Virtual Senior Center, the VSC. We knew this program was first of its kind, engaging homebound older adults in interactive real-time online classes, and that it effectively reduces social isolation by creating social networks for homebound seniors. We've learned that many seniors have a new interest in virtual social interaction. In only a few months, the VSC participation has doubled, with new members joining each week. The VSC is a vital source of face-to-face social interaction and can become a lifeline for the thousands of vulnerable New Yorkers who are isolated at home. We believe that the VSC should become a permanent part of the city's infrastructure to support older adults. Just as New York City invested in home-delivered meals for homebound seniors, we believe that our virtual senior center is a senior center for homebound seniors, and we're eager to work with the city as part of the new RFP process to establish this idea more broadly. In my remaining minute, I want to highlight 4 areas. Firstly, we agree with the previous sentiment that although the senior centers are closed, our staff has been actively providing essential services, and they're eager to continue to do so. Secondly, we believe that there are safe ways to restart food services, and we're ready to work with the city on establishing and implementing a new system, possibly grab and go, or another model that allows social distancing for the safety of our members and our staff. Thirdly, we're eager to return to the centers and serve our members as before, but we are cautious about planning for future programs. We appreciate DFTA's careful approach to reopening, taking into consideration staff safety and member safety. Fourth, we have adapted our programs virtually, and we can starkly see technology disparity among seniors in terms of access to devices, Wi-Fi, and skills. We need a comprehensive plan to address this divide as we look to the future of services for older adults. There are additional details in the testimony submitted electronically. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Self-Help is grateful to the City Council for emphasizing the needs of older adults in policy decisions and budget allocation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Ruth Finkelstein.
Starting time.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm also from the Brookdale Center for Healthy Aging, and Kristen so eloquently conveyed our main ideas coming into this hearing. What I'd like to do is really briefly underline our conclusions from during this hearing so that it's clear where we stand on some of the questions that arose today. First of all, Brookdale feels strongly that the situation warrants postponing the RFA for senior centers. We need to understand what the new models are in the COVID era. We're not going to be post-COVID truly in the near future. And so the RFA needs to take that into account. Secondly, in figuring out about reopening, it's important to use data from relevant experiences. I feel that Borough President Brewer touched on this in her testimony, but isn't it too bad that we didn't associate COVID testing with the cooling center use so that we could then have strong evidence, not just impression, that that experience was able to be done unassociated with transmission. I think it would be great if we could have more intergovernmental collaboration on figuring out how to get information to DFTA and the service providers from the experiences that different sectors of the government are going through. And of course, this is hindered by the lack of the relevant deputy mayor, as mentioned by Chairman Chin and Commissioner, oh my God, senior moment, very embarrassing. And the commissioner, I know you can't say senior moment anymore, I get that, but I can. But I think that one of your pieces of advocacy, and that we would join you in if you thought it was helpful, is that we've got to have a deputy mayor over Health and Human Services at this time. This is the wrong time to be missing that position, and the temptation not to worry about it because we just have a little more time in the administration is the wrong move. And so if we can help, I think that we need to strengthen the interface with the design of the testing, the contact tracing.
Expired.
DOHMH, rather than have it attenuate and weaken. It's time to make the strategy for older adults to re-enter the world, but that can only happen healthfully and safely, and that we can only know about if we have testing and prevalence and transmission information that we lack, and we have to be a part of deciding that. And just in general, one of the big lessons from COVID is that these departmental silos just don't reflect how people live their lives. And we simply have to make new strategies and mechanisms and ideas to cut across them for all of our well-being. Thank you so much for indulging me to jump into a spot I really didn't earn. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next panelist will be Mary Fernandez.
Starting.
Good morning, Council Member Chin and other members of the Aging Committee. Sorry, good afternoon. I'm Mary Hirchana Fernandez, Director of Family Support Services at SAC, South Asian Council for Social Services. Thank you for this opportunity to talk with you today about how COVID-19 has impacted the emotional and physical wellness of Asian seniors, particularly here in Flushing, Queens. I really want to thank Council Member Chen for raising the issue of digital divide, which we are seeing here among our clients today. We are a nonprofit agency that works to empower immigrant communities through services in the areas of healthcare access and education, senior supports and services and food security. We also provide basic and advanced English and computer courses and a summer youth program. Our staff together speaks 12 different Asian languages and Spanish and Creole. Each year, we serve over 15,000 clients through all our services. Over the past 2 decades, we have built a relationship of trust with our clients. Our cultural and linguistic competency has enabled us to develop programs that are client-centered and holistic. As the pandemic spread rampantly through Queens, we were worried about our seniors, many of whom were isolated and living in poverty even before the pandemic began. They depended on organizations like us to socialize with their peers. And a lot of them, when we moved programming to virtual setting, did not know how to use a computer or smartphone. I want to tell you the story of one of our clients whose phone hung up. Her phone was not starting. She did not know what to do. So she was banging on the door of her windows and shouting at her door and her windows to draw the attention of anybody who could come and help her start her phone. Because for a moment she was worried that this phone, which is her only contact with the world, has been lost. So it took her an hour of doing that when a neighbor noticed her attention and came to her and helped her restart her phone. The first person that she called was her social worker at SACS. And she told her social worker that she was worried that something's going to happen to her and she would not be able to get help. So it's very important that while we talk about virtual programming, we also address that a lot of our clients seniors don't have access to internet, Wi-Fi, or smartphones. We are doing a lot of our programming. We have online support groups, over the phone support groups in Bengali, Hindi, and we're providing individual supportive counseling over the phone. We have a Bollywood Antakshari, which our seniors love. They love to come play and be in touch with each others. I also, I know I'm running out of time, we'll be providing a written testimony. I want to talk about access to food and hunger, which is also a major concern among Asian seniors. We are currently providing South Asian and Asian groceries to seniors all over Queens, starting March 30th. We tied up with a small business in Queens to provide cooked South Asian vegetarian meals to seniors across Queens, despite not being contracted for meal services. A senior living in Jackson Heights all by herself, suffering from asthma and arthritis, called our office in the first week of April and told us that that her home health aide had tested positive for COVID, and she did not have anybody to cook or get food for her. She hadn't had any fresh vegetables or hot meals for more than a month. She was connected to us through 311. When we finally got her the meal, she said, "Thank you. I'm not anxious anymore and worried about where my next meal will come from." Since then, we've been serving over 3,000 individuals and families with food, many of whom are seniors. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last panelist on this panel is Rachel Sharrow.
Starting time.
Hi, my name is Rachel Sharrow, and I'm the Associate Executive Director at City Meals on Wheels. And I'd like to begin by thanking the Council, and especially Chairwoman Chin, for her unwavering and steadfast support of services for older adults and for City Meals on Wheels. And I'm going to be very quick with this because I know you have other people who would like to speak, and we've been here for a while. As always, City Meals on Wheels stepped in to work with a variety of senior providers with emergency meals, serving over 700,000 of these meals since March, which is an increase of 25%. And as noted by the Commissioner, we have an additional 2,500 Meals on Wheels clients that we're serving, in addition to those at NORCS, NYCHA facilities, senior housing who fell through the cracks of Get Food. Senior centers must reopen. We need to fund aging services more, as we have proved our adeptness, all of us in the senior services world, as we've heard over and over, in reacting to our constituent needs during emergencies. Please use us, fund us appropriately, and respect us and our expertise. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for this panel? Seeing none, we will move on to the next panel. Our next panel will be Melissa Sklarz, Helen Ahn, Carolee Serrano, and Gail Brown. We'll begin with Melissa.
Starting time.
Hi, thank you. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Melissa Sklarz, Senior Government Relations Strategist at SAGE. Thank you for having this panel. Always great to see Chairperson Chin in charge. So SAGE was founded in 1978. We're the first and largest organization dedicated to improving the lives of LGBT elders here in New York. SAGE is a cornerstone of the LGBT community. We have shifted our capacity, energy, and resources to adapt to this new reality. Thank you for the Council for always your great support and your leadership on issues dealing with LGBT elders. LGBT elders, and specifically elders of color, have more underlying health conditions such as diabetes and HIV, higher levels of poverty, lower access to health care, social isolation, mistrust of institutions for decades of discrimination. And so SAGE stands to connect them to an opportunity to get access to services they would not normally get. We've been closed since the middle of March. We've completely redesigned our programming, bring it online, accessing Get Food NYC. We've had our staff calling thousands of our members. Get Food NYC, we were able to provide food for 3,000 of our members. Sage Connect, we've now instituted volunteer services with our community. You know, you mentioned earlier about DFTA and the older adult centers, and one of the quotes is to create a high quality of services, programs, and resources that attract the needs and preference of a emerging diverse demographic in New York. And among the models that even you mentioned earlier was a comprehensive model where all needs are incorporated. We feel strongly that SAGE has re-envisioned that progressive model, and we've done that. The Council has been great. They've been very supportive with discretionary support. We have 5 centers in New York, life-saving supports, housing navigation to provide outreach information and referrals. And we're confident we can continue to develop innovative protocols. Our partnership with the City Council has proven that New York City is committed to take care of its LGBT elders. Hopefully we'll be able to deal with the scourge of COVID very shortly, but in the meantime, we look forward to continuing the work that we've been doing, and hopefully we'll have the help and support of Chair Chin and the New York City Council. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Helen An.
Starting time.
Thank you for having this opportunity. Hi, my name is Helen An, and I'm a director of Senior Centers of Korean Community Services of Metropolitan New York. I am here today to speak about our current ethnic home delivered meal program as a subcontractor and the crucial need for special funding to address the unprecedented food insecurity and social isolation Asian American seniors are struggling with due to the pandemic. Since March 23rd, 2020, all congregate meals were paused, and the daily average of 500 seniors through our 2 senior centers who have relied on the program during have been struggling to secure their daily food. DIFTA introduced all senior centers to pause the purchasing of any raw food, instead began providing DIFTA centralized standard food. Soon after, the Get Food New York City initiative by DSNY took over the DIFTA meal service. Each senior member had no choice but to accept the unsuitable food and services that were inadequate in addressing the hardship caused by the pandemic-induced food insecurity. For immigrant seniors in particular, being deprived of the ethnic meals they've had their entire lives have been an added burden to their daily hardships. Existing senior center service providers acutely know what our seniors need the most, especially having served on the front lines during this challenging time. Through our telephone check-in and wellness calls, we have contacted 10,000 times to our seniors and learned that so many of our seniors are feeling the impacts of food insecurity. They have found the Get Food meal service is not suitable for their needs as homebound seniors. Meals have been left on the floor without notice, leaving seniors unaware of meals that have been delivered. During the summer months, this raised the concern of food spoilage. As a result, we have received many calls complaining about the service or asking us to stop the Get Food meals and when we could provide ethnic Get and Go meals. Furthermore, the recently released Senior Center RP concept paper raises many concerns about the future of the existing seniors centers. Not all senior centers can fit into the standard models, and it is not desirable to start a new model during this uncertain time. Moreover, many seniors struggle with accessibility issues and face difficulties participating in virtual classes and activities due to the limitations imposed by aging, language barriers, and lack of video technology or internet service at their home. The impact of food insecurity on both physical and mental health of Asian American immigrant seniors is immense, and having to refuse homebound meal to clients and family members who are in need have been more difficult than any other dilemmas we've faced as an organization. We urge you to consider concrete reopening plan and meal service options with adequate financial support and funding for existing senior centers and homebound providers who provide dedicated services that effectively meet the acute needs of our seniors. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We will now hear from Curly Serrano.
Starting time.
Curly Serrano, do we have you online?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
No worries. You may begin.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present here today. My name is Curly Serrano, and I am the director of the Senior Center at Sunnyside Community Services, which is a community-based organization serving over 16,000 people of all ages, ethnicities, and income levels since 1974 in Queens. Our programs are designed to enrich lives, strengthen communities through service, engagement, beginning with those most in need. Senior centers have been providing crucial support to older adults in New York City during this pandemic. We have been providing support calls, assistance, and guidance to our older adults. We have been striving to ensure food security, medical access, and mental health connections, as well as offering virtual programming as it relates to physical and mental health. We need to continue providing the range of support services, including engagement opportunities, benefit assessment, case management for the homebound, and mental health services, caregiver supports, just to name a few. COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in older adults becoming increasingly isolated. We know that isolation negatively impacts older adults' mental health and overall physical well-being. The lack of connection to their social networks decreases their sense of belonging and being, and increases health risk factors, which in turn increase their vulnerability to COVID-19. In order to begin to have conversations regarding the future of senior centers, considerations have to be made with regard to health and safety of the of our most vulnerable population during this crisis. In order to begin this conversation of in-person programming, the focus has to be on community health and applying best practices in addressing these needs. We don't know what the future holds with regard to COVID and how this impacts our society. The only way to move forward is to realize that we are in a public health crisis and incorporate this into senior center planning. We need guidance and support in order to most effectively meet the needs of our older adults. Standards need to be outlined, focusing on health and safety for our older adults and the staff that are involved in providing these services. New York City has amazing services. We need to be connected to those services and have access to those services, which the city can easily do for us. We also need to ensure resources in order to be technologically efficient. Action needs to be taken to assist our older adults in remaining connected with their family, their friends, and the community. In order to do this efficiently, access to resources that allow them to remain connected virtually, such as equipment and web access, needs to be secured. These resources have not been equitably distributed. As it is, older adults struggle to meet the high cost of living and at times have to choose what is needed most. Do you eat healthy? Do you buy medications, or do you pay the rent? This multi-level set of barriers has further exacerbated the inequitable experience of immigrant older adults, which many of which we support at Sunnyside Community Services. They are not able to afford tablets, smartphones, or internet connections. We need connections to OATS, as well as other programs, and even have Aging Connect provide IT support to seniors who need to maintain these connections. We also need to focus on benefits and benefit assistance. We are hearing about food provision, which in our community districts 2 and 5, we do have a waiting list for case management Meals on Wheels. But we need to be able to navigate these systems, and the conversation needs to start as to how these services are going to be put in place so that they are again in line with health and safety standards, not only for the older adults, but for the staff as well. I have to consider the future of our senior center staff, our kitchen staff, and our transportation staff as well. We have been redirecting services, but need to have conversation as to how to best support senior centers in retaining and supporting our dedicated employees. In conclusion, I do believe that health is a human right, and as such, is it imperative that we engage older adults at all levels of activity and ability. We need to address isolation, as this directly impacts physical and mental health. I ask that we keep this in mind when planning for present and future of senior centers. Please help us by providing the resources that are needed to ensure the health and safety of older adults and those who strive to assist them in New York City. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final panelist for this panel is Gail Brown.
Starting time.
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to present today. I can hardly repeat all that has been echoed by my fellow providers, especially my Western Queens providers. My name is Gail Brown. I'm the Director of Senior Services at Jacob Riis Neighborhood Settlement. We are a multi-service agency that serves DYCD, DOE, as well as DISTA programs. I'd like to just make three quick points because the others have been already well-versed by my colleagues. We absolutely need clear and concise guidance regarding the safety protocols for the operation of the senior center, not just for our seniors, but for our staff, our vendors, our visitors who come into the agency, which has multi-levels, and we need to be able to service them safely. Also, with respect to our expertise, the work groups that are formed could not possibly incorporate all that is needed, and perhaps the Department for the Aging could do a larger or wider scope to include work groups by area, perhaps Western Queens, Southeast Queens, Northeast Queens, because we serve some of the same people and our expertise is left out if we're not included in the work group, which Jacob Riis is not included in. Also, we'd like to have our funding restored to raw food. The commissioner stated that we didn't lose funding, but in fact, we did. We were asked to reallocate as much as $47,000 from our raw food and kitchen staff as part of our budget because of the attrition, and we understand that. But in the last 6 months, we went from serving 80 meals to registering 454 Queensbridge residents who are not connected to DISTA services just through Get Food alone, and those people are not going away. So if we return to direct services partially, and it includes the service of meals, we will need that funding restored. Otherwise, we will not be able to keep up with the demand that has not increased, but the seniors have seen the need to be connected to a DISTA service. And this is outside of the homebound seniors that receive their meals from our counterparts in Western Queens at Sunnyside. So we have more than 600-fold seniors who are now connected that if we do not have funding restored, when we move from the Get Food model, we will not be able to keep up with the demand. Lastly, we are generously supported by our city council, and we would like to say that we'd love to keep all of our discretionary funding, but how do we use it if we do not have safety protocols related to the enhanced services that the discretionary funds provide? Thank you again for allowing me to present.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions at this time for this panel?
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you to this panel for your testimony. I just wanted to ask Gail Curley. I think Gail mentioned that her agency was not part of the working group. Curley, was your agency part of the working group?
No, it's not.
So, have anyone from DIFTA reach out to you, Curley, or Gail, to solicit comment, suggestions on this whole preparing for reopening?
I did not hear anything, and there may have been an executive director and then a group, but he'll report back. But as far as the providers, as far as the center directors, I was not contacted. And Curley and I speak regularly, and I wasn't aware that she was contacted either.
I think that's a big problem. We will have to.
Huge problem.
Yeah, we would have to get back to the commissioner. Because, come on. The staff from DIFTA should be the one reaching out to you. Your contract manager or the person that you deal with on a regular basis, they should be talking to you to find out what your concerns are and in terms of how to prepare for a safe, reopening. And that hasn't been done. It's just not right. And
they do contact us. They do contact us in regard to what to take from our budget, what not to do, what we can't do, what we're prohibited from doing. And that's unless somebody else says differently, that's the level of conversation that we've had with DIFTA, at least from March till April. But with regard to reopening, I haven't heard a word.
Okay. No, I appreciate your respond, and definitely we will follow up with DIFTA on that. I know, Helen, have you been contacted or your agency been contacted by DIFTA? Are you on the working group?
I'm not in the working group, but I have been contacted a few times by DIFTA about how our agency and senior centers are ready and prepare for the reopening, and DIFTA keeps sending us some PPE. So both senior centers are deep cleaned, and we are always, just get ready just for reopening, notice.
Okay, so there's unevenness in terms of contact. Also, Helen, I was concerned about your agency has a subcontract to the home delivered meal. Do you have a waiting list?
Yes, we have waiting list, and also due to the time, limit, I skipped the very important, information. I mean, through this pandemic since March 23rd, 2020, we provided ethnic, majorly Korean and Chinese homebound meals over 35,000 until end of August. And without great support from City Meals on Wheels and also dedicated staff, we wouldn't be able to deliver. And one thing I'm really proud of that we never had stopped the service. There was no stoppage of meal delivery service at this, perilous situation.
Were you allowed to allocate funding from your DIFTA budget?
No.
To meet this need?
No, it's solely from, homebound meal, the reimbursement only. And community, actually the local community sponsors and and individuals, they donated raw food, and also we purchased through only homebound meal reimbursement raw food, budget, not DIFTA money. No.
Did you apply for the new home delivery meal RFP?
Actually, I was involved in focus group and went every meeting that DIFTA hosted, but I was told that our agency is not eligible for submitting RFP. Again, we are hoping to our current contractors win the grant, and we, gladly become their subcontractors again.
Thank you. I mean, I think we need to follow up with you on that, why you were not qualified to be a contractor. But thank you. Thank you for your answers and your testimonies. Newsart, you can call the next panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next panel will be Jenny Lowe, Bonnie Lumagui, and Aaron Rooney. We'll start with Jenny.
Starting time.
Hi, thank you, Chair Chin, for allowing me to testify today. I'm Jenny Lowe. I'm a resident of Lower Manhattan and a volunteer of a network of folks working with an organization called Rethink Food NYC. We have been delivering over 420,000 meals to seniors on the Lower East Side in Chinatown since April. I'm here to talk about an effective way of how a meal delivery program can work for seniors. Since March, seniors have been isolated because they are not able to go to senior centers, and many of the providers have articulated very well on what that happened and what the impact is. And one of the major impact is really mental health for the seniors who have been at home for this long time. With reduced city budget and city resources, delivering a meal is really the first thing that you can begin to help the seniors recover from this traumatic experience of being isolated. As an example, we've been delivering meals to a complex in the Lower Manhattan area called Knickerbocker Village. This Knickerbocker Village is a NOC serviced by Hamilton Madison's houses. We partner with Hamilton Madison houses and the management in the complex, where we deliver meals. Seniors register to deliver for free meals with Hamilton Madison House, and we deliver the meals to. I actually drive the meals to Knickerbocker Village every day from Monday to Friday at the beginning, and now about 3 days a week because we recruited more drivers. So we deliver the meal to the building staff deliver the meals door to door to the seniors. And Hamilton Madison House makes calls to the seniors for wellness check and also solicit or receive any other requests from the seniors. So this is a model that works because the meals that we deliver to Knickerbocker Village are sourced by local restaurants, and they also are culturally sensitive. So this is a way to support not only the seniors and for their the meal, and for their health well-being, but also a way to support local businesses as well. This is a win-win-win situation. So I'm asking the DFTA and the council to consider encouraging more of this type of meals delivery. I think many of the providers have talked about how the meals that were delivered to the seniors were not necessarily culturally sensitive and difficult for seniors to take in. Last thing is, for seniors who are living in multi-generational homes, the reopening of school without ensuring safety is going to bring another level of risk to the seniors who have grandchildren and who go to school. So we must have safe school, the safety of school before we reopen, to not add another risk to the seniors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny. Our next panelist will be Bonnie Lumagui.
Starting time.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for convening this panel today, and thank you, Councilmember Chin, who has always been a staunch supporter and advocate in the Committee of Older Adult Needs. I am Bonnie Lumagui. I'm the Assistant Director, Executive Director for Senior Services and Community Services at Hamilton Madison House. My colleagues and I are just very grateful that you're holding this hearing today on a timely topic of the post-COVID-19 operations of senior centers. Hamilton Madison House is a long, deep tradition in supporting seniors in Manhattan, most specifically in the Lower East Side and Chinatown. We extend services to low-income and immigrant seniors, many of Asian descent, operating NORC programs, as Jenny mentioned. Thank you, Rethink, for your support. We really appreciate you at Knickerbocker Village, a social adult day program, caregiver support program, and particularly and pertinent to this hearing, the City Hall Senior Center, which is among one of the city's largest and longest standing senior centers. As is well known, the large majority of those who have sadly died from this virus have been seniors, and the population has therefore been compelled to remain at home and avoid contact with others, making them more susceptible to isolation, mental health difficulties, and other difficulties, as my other colleagues have so eloquently stated today. Closing of senior centers in particular has been highly problematic in that these programs serve as hubs for seniors, many with limited resources, for multiple essential purposes, including meals, social connections, personal expression, and receiving vital information. We want and look forward to reopening the City Hall Senior Center, and we intend to partner with DFTA and others to ensure the reopening occurs in a manner that maximizes safety for seniors and staff, and at the same time allows for the most satisfying possible experience. Towards that end, we have several recommendations. One, support immigrants. Ensure that all senior centers serving immigrant populations are fully equipped to respond to the unique post-COVID-19 needs of the population with respect to matters of nutrition, health, and cultural matters. Put in place comprehensive safety measures. That is prudent. DFTAs must issue safety and screening protocols and procedures and extend the resources necessary to comply, including staffing, to managing screening, temperature checks, crowd control, and cleaning. Staff be provided to and required to utilize PPE. DFTA must provide additional funding necessary to purchase, clean, and sanitize supplies to allow for daily disinfecting and for deep cleaning by professional services. Plexiglass barriers utilized to allow separation between staff and participants, hand sanitizing stations, staffing schedules being staggered, that volunteers are not included in the programming design, and clear policies put in place for managing situations in which participants do not comply with safety rules. We want to work with DFTA, but we need to have clear and concise protocols. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last panelist on this panel will be Erin Rooney.
Starting time.
Erin, you have to unmute.
Oh, sorry. So thank you again, and thank you, Councilor Chair Chin and the Committee on Aging. We appreciate your advocacy and your remarks thus far today. My name is Erin Rooney. I'm the Clinical Director at Stanley Isaacs Center. We operate a hybrid model senior center and NORC program. We also oversee the Taft Senior Center at Taft Housing. A good portion of our seniors are public housing residents. Like many other providers that have presented, since we had to close our doors to in-person services in March, we've made over 8,000 calls to seniors. We've identified and connected over 600 seniors to food supports. We obtained over 200 air conditioners, many of which we had to purchase ourselves. And we developed a community kitchen to prepare and deliver over 18,000 meals so far. We've done all this with little guidance and collaboration from the city. The human service sector has largely been left out of these conversations, in our opinion. Over the last year, this has led to incredible challenges getting eligible older adults onto programs like Get Food and Get Cool long after they were launched. To my knowledge, we are not part of any working group so far that we've been talking about here. For this reason, we're very concerned that directives to reopen in-person programs prematurely without the support, the funding, and planning that it could take could have devastating consequences. We are, of course, very eager to reopen safely and get everybody back on site. And we're keenly aware of the risks of isolation. This has been the hardest thing we've ever had to do as an agency. But the crisis is not over, and there has not been adequate funding or planning to operate in-person programming, in our opinion. This could be deadly for our population if we do this wrong. We have deep concerns about DFTA resuming the distribution of food, as was mentioned earlier. This was very poorly handled by DFTA in the spring and the summer. The Get Food program has been very problematic, and that timeline seems very quick. I would like to thank the Borough President Brewer and UNH for including the indirect cost rate issue in their testimonies. The absence of full funding for that initiative in the current fiscal year could further cripple already underfunded programming. We would ask that a meeting maybe be called with OMB and DFTA to ensure that the RFP and other aspects of reopening are funded adequately. I'll end by echoing what many have said before me today. This is not the time for us to be, looking at these new models of services and this RFP. As we've heard you speak of, Councilman Chin today, postponing, delaying this RFP until after this COVID-19 crisis is behind us is really all that makes sense. It is not a time for us to be able to focus on that when we are not through a crisis where we need to really address the food security and isolation issues with our older adults. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Erin. That concludes this panel. Are there any council member questions? No. Seeing none, that concludes the public panel testimony portion of this hearing. If we inadvertently missed anyone that would like to testify, please use the Zoom raise hand function and we will call you in the order your hand is raised. Seeing none, we've concluded the public testimony for this hearing. I will now turn it back to Chair Chin for closing remarks.
Yeah, I would like to really thank everyone for coming today to participate in this important hearing. I really appreciate all the providers, all the great work that you've been doing. And I urge you to submit, your comment and your suggestion to DFTA. Also reach out to my office. We want to work together with you to make sure that we can safely open up back the sites for in-person servicing and to make sure we have adequate funding for the senior centers and the senior center, the providers, all the issues that was raised here today. We look forward to continue to working with you. Once again, thank you for everyone, and thank you to all the staff, and thank you to all the sergeant for helping with this hearing. The hearing is now adjourned. Thank you.